right, folks. Hidden Pearls podcast coming at you. This is week 18. Niners are heading down to play the Rams. As all of us kind of thought that as the year went on, that the Niners playoff hopes would come down to the last week of the season, as it does for a bunch of folks. It's been a really tight race the whole year. So final road trip down to play our good friends, the Los Angeles Rams. You can hear more about that discussion. Obviously, if the Niners win, they are in the playoffs. So we're fighting for that wild card spot. If they lose, not so good or a little bit tougher than the Saints, I think, have to lose to the Atlanta Falcons. So that could be tough. But anyway, conversation this week, join me, Emma, and we have George chatting it up with offensive tackle, plays right tackle for us, Tom Compton, 10-year vet. He's been around, listened to some Kyle Shanahan stories because he was with him at two other teams. So pretty interesting that way. And also about playing in the Super Bowl loss to the New England Patriots. Don't tell him I said that. That was a little sensitive for him. So, but Tom will be in there and they'll talk a little bit about the game as well and get ready for that. In part two, all right, we are really, really thrilled. This week we have two very special guests, bringing really some connections that I have from my old football days at the University of Iowa. Our first guest is Marine Gunnery Sergeant Chris Holm, 17-year vet with the Marines. He's been on 5 combat tours and on one of those served as Gunnery Sergeant. For our other guest tonight, which is First Lieutenant Alec Mayhan. Now, here's the deal. Alec is the son of Dave Mayhan, who is a fellow offensive lineman, played with me back in the Iowa days, when actually we played on the 1981 Iowa Rose Bowl team, which won the Big Ten championship that year. So actually played in the 82 Rose Bowl. So that was pretty cool. So we're super excited about that. And it's a great conversation. Chris shares a little bit about his deployment. And Alec is on just to talk about their relationship, some of the things they've done. He's a first lieutenant. And so they kind of talk about a little bit of those things. And we get into some of the mental health issues as well. So it's really good. So we welcome those guys and we invite you and we hope you enjoy the show.
Take 3, Hidden Pearls podcast. Tom Compton's here. We're not wasting any of his time. We're going to go right through this thing. Thanks, Tom, for being here. So happy for you. After a few altercations to our script, we're now ready to roll. Tom is a 10-year vet. Congratulations on 10 years. That is one hell of an accomplishment because the NFL does stand for not for long, and you've been here for quite a while. So congratulations. That's pretty sick. Coming out of South Dakota, taken by the Washington football team, even though they were called something different 10 years ago, in the 6th round of the 2012 draft. Wow, that was my freshman year of college. Nice. You're listed at 6'6", 315 pounds. I love all of that. Tom is married to Tiffany, and they have a new baby boy, Theo, born last November, and also have a daughter named Tate, who's a year and a half old. Tom, welcome to the Girls Podcast.
Thank you. Awesome introduction.
Was I nice enough?
That was very nice of you.
He's pretty gentle. Okay, so Tom, we like to start by taking it back a little bit. So let's start with our family lessons. So can you kind of paint a picture? What was growing up for you like? How many siblings? Who was the toughest? Anything you want to share with that?
Sure. Yeah, we grew up in Rosemount, Minnesota, suburbs of St. Paul, Minneapolis. I have an older brother and an older sister. So I'm the baby, the youngest. My brother is 3 years older than me. He was definitely the tough guy. I was a big softy baby, kind of still am. But he was kind of the reason why I got into football, being the older brother. He did it, and I kind of saw what he was doing and wanted to follow along that path. We started young. I was 7 or 8, started in 3rd grade. And just kind of followed his lead on everything. But yeah, there's no question he was tougher there, although things have changed a little bit. Once we got out of college and he started shrinking, I started growing. So it's kind of been an easy wrestling match ever since then. And then lessons, just trying to get away with things, trying to be sneaky because they would always break the rules. So they'd set an example of how to not do it. You just
We're
kind of
so, so good for that. We're so good for that.
I learned a lot from him on what not to do.
Yeah, they get in trouble, and then you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that. You have to be really careful on how to do that. And you just kind of figure it out from there.
Did you always play offensive line, Tom, or did you ever play another position?
I've been an offensive lineman my whole life.
Wow.
In the 3rd to 6th grade, it was weight limits. So I was always O-line no matter what. And then we got to middle school and they were kind of like open to you doing different positions. And they were like, go where you want to go play. And so I was like, oh, wide receiver would be fun. I started walking over there. Coach grabs me by the neck and is like, no, you're playing O-line. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And we've always like the high school I went to and the communities I played in were huge. So we didn't really have a whole lot of people play offense and defense. So I've basically just done offensive line my whole life.
Wow.
A true master.
Yeah.
No greater honor.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, sure. We can call it that.
I bet you would have made a great wide receiver.
Yeah, Tom, you would have rounded you guys up.
Playing like backyard ball, I mean, obviously, like going up for a ball is always fun, but O-line is my gift and my curse.
Do you want one of those tackle passes that Trent Williams got?
Yeah, I've actually had a few opportunities in the past as kind of a jumbo tight end. I came close once. There's been times it's weird, like either I'm wide open and the quarterback knows better, or I'm like triple covered for some reason and the defense is messed up. So
oh, good.
That's kind of how it is.
Cool. Before we leave your family stuff, what was kind of the best or toughest lesson you learned from your family? I mean, just about life or, how to get along or any of those kind of things. What'd you pick up there?
Gosh, there's a lot. I mean, obviously it shapes who you are. But I think, just kind of being tough, having tough skin, being from the Midwest, growing up before internet and social media and stuff. My parents obviously wanted us to be able to kind of fend for ourselves. And I think they did a really good job of letting us kind of grow and not like helicopter or suffocate us in any way. And just kind of figure things out as you go and kind of have to be tough on your own and just kind of learn the hard way, I guess.
I love that. Tom,
Tom,
you go, Dad. Go.
Well, I was just going to say there's a lot of research on that, like your kind of age group in there. You're kind of one of the last kind of vestiges of, generation of kids that actually didn't have super helicopter parents. You know what I mean? You were it was kind of starting there maybe 5 or 6 years before that. And a lot of research about just letting kids kind of fail and try and do all that kind of stuff versus protecting them from every bump in the road and all that kind of stuff. So,
Dad, would you say you're one of the super helicopter-y parents then?
Are you a helicopter parent?
Did you helicopter us?
Well, I tried to guide and do all that
You
kind of stuff.
hang out with us on a daily basis?
Yeah, but I wasn't worried if you got knocked down or, all that kind of bullshit. So, we tried to let you take the knocks as they come. We gave you a lot of freedom. Hell, when we lived on the big acreage, right? Hell, George took off for the afternoon, got lost. We couldn't find, we had a 300 acre piece of property and nightfall and we couldn't find George anywhere. So it's like, like we kind of let you run and go do shit. So it's like, that's kind of part of it. So that's where the old rumor is that the broken bones are actually good for you. They grow back stronger and the experience of breaking something or learning or failing or hurting, it kind of builds that character. So anyway, kudos to the folks. That's great. So,
yeah, I'm definitely part of that group that, they would let you just go out and say, be back when the street lights come on and you just kind of go out and figure stuff out.
Right.
A trusting community. That seems like a very far-fetched thing now also.
Yeah, it's tough to imagine with doing that with my kids, but we'll see.
Yeah.
You guys plan on having any more kids? I know you guys just had one like months ago.
As far as we're concerned, we're happy with 2. We don't want to start having to play zone defense. So it's pretty good man on man right now. So
Watch, you guys will try again and you'll have triplets or something.
Please don't wish that on me.
I'm wishing. You're right.
All right. So transitioning from college to the NFL. So 6th round to the Washington
football team.
Washington football team out of South Dakota. Can you talk a little bit about what the toughest transition was for you from college to pros within the first couple of years?
I mean, within the first couple of days, the talent level, it was absurd how much better everyone is around you. I think we got to rookie minicamp OTAs, and it was just like a whole nother level that I hadn't even known was out there. And at the time, we had Ryan Kerrigan, Brian Arakpo as our outside linebackers, and just getting worked by them every day as a rookie. Just the strength, the speed, everything that comes with professional football, trying to adjust to that was really hard. And I mean, that's probably why I ended up on the practice squad. And, but you just kind of, it takes time, takes reps, takes for offensive line. Sometimes, like in my case, taking years, not just a season or two to figure out. So there's just so much that comes with it. And then you just try to kind of narrow it down each year, because it's just this whole brand new experience for me.
Well, Tom, and
real quick, who else got drafted with you? Do you remember? Like, do you remember who your first round draft pick was?
Yeah, it was Robert Griffin III. We had RG3, we had Kirk Cousins, Alfred Morris.
I played with Alfred.
Yeah, Josh Revis, Adam Geddes, Keenan Robinson was a linebacker. I think that's it.
That's pretty cool. That's quite the class you're a part of.
It was a good group. Yeah, we had a really solid draft class. I was happy with that group.
That's
pretty
awesome.
cool.
Did you like your rookie year? Did you have like a best friend from your rookie class? Did you guys like? I don't know, because like I had Trent Taylor and another offensive lineman that lived with my rookie season. We're basically like inseparable. Did you have like a group of guys you hung out with consistently?
Yeah, it was mainly Kirk Cousins. We were
sick.
Yeah, we were like both kind of running with the twos. So like that relationship of the O-line and the backup quarterback was always been strong, I think. And we hung out all the time. We were roommates for 3 years.
That's cool.
Just kind of figured it out together type of thing. It was a good experience for both of us, I think.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's a fun fact.
Yeah, it is.
Kirk Cousins roommates with the Tom Compton. That's awesome.
I'm sure it shaped a lot of the career he has now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've influenced him in positive ways, some negative probably.
We all need that. All right, Pops, you're up.
Oh, good. Well, I was just going to, Tom, it's amazing though, like when you come in like that, especially, that range of draft choice, George was in that same category. You're just trying to fight your ass off to make it that first year so you get a chance to develop. But the NFL's not much of a developmental league for the most part, And so it's really kudos to you. I mean, you must have been showing something. I know that first year, a lot of practice squad, I think, as I understand it, but still found a way and then kind of fought your way on to making the roster later in the season and all that kind of stuff. So pretty cool that way. And so just, again, fighting to survive and every year kind of making it. And I know we're going to get to some of the teams you played for and all that, but anyway, that's quite an accomplishment to sit here now, have 10 seasons in the NFL when most people don't make it 4. That's really an accomplishment. So well done. Okay. And then I guess, one thing I'm always curious about is a lot of the guys we talk to when they're making that transition, and maybe Kirk Cousins was that guy, but I just wonder, like within O-line play, as you're trying to like figure it out, was there anybody that really was a guiding hand and said, "Hey, Tom, try this or do that," or, like paved the way for you a little bit to make it a little bit easier that you look back on and really helped you make it?
Yeah, we had I feel like a really special offensive line group when I was in Washington. And every guy that was on the starting line helped me out every way. And it was so cool because, you hear some horror stories of guys being assholes or not wanting to help out the younger guys. But like literally every guy on the line had a little piece of something to like be like, hey, you should try this, or your stance is a little awkward, maybe your footwork here. I mean, I had Trent Williams.
Right.
He was a part of that group, and obviously he does things that no one can really replicate. So it was more of just being astonished at what he could do physically.
Right.
But then down the line, we Corey Lichtensteiger, Will Montgomery, Chris Chester, Tyler Columbus. Those guys every day weren't afraid to help me and coach me, which was awesome. And I don't know how invaluable that is, but I definitely wouldn't be here without them.
Were you at Washington with Brandon Sheriff or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was his rookie year. I was there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, how was Scherf?
Scherfy. I love Scherf. As a rookie, he was obviously trying to figure it out too, but he's still, he's proven every year how badass he is and how good he is of a player. And
he's kind of a freak athlete, kind of like Trent.
You don't think about it, but with him, like his hair and head, it reminded me of like a grizzly bear, like it's just this thick skull. And like,
yes.
There's something about that. You can just headbutt people and crush them that like, I was like, yeah, this dude's going to be good.
Yeah. He was fun at Iowa. He was so intimidating. Like, did you ever see the viral video of him hang cleaning like 450 pounds or something like that?
No, I've not seen that.
Oh yeah, dude. It was he did it his senior year. He threw that up. I was like, oh my, because I think I was a freshman or a sophomore when redshirt freshman he did. And I was like, okay, nice. That's an NFL football player.
Yeah. And he's super nice and like good dude too. So it's kind of like shocking a little bit when you just meet him.
Well, very good. All right, cool. Okay. Then 10-year career, played for Washington, Atlanta, Bears, Vikings, Jets, and then the Niners starting in 21. So we're just kind of curious, with those transitions and that, what are some of the issues that you faced and how did you kind of overcome some of that stuff, bopping around like that?
So it's super hard. It's really tough going to a new team every year. It wasn't bad going to Atlanta after Washington. It was like, oh, this would be a fresh start. And then they had a lot of the same coaches that I was familiar with. So that was probably the easiest transition because I was excited to start somewhere new. And then it seemed like every year after that, it was bouncing to a new team. And it's after the first time, you're like, okay, maybe I'll stick here. And then it just keeps going and you get into this like thing of like, gosh, am I going to be on this team the following year? And the hardest things are like learning the playbook. I mean, you pick that up pretty quick, but like each coach is different, like how they want their technique done. So you're like trying to learn how they coach things. And by the time you figure it out, or you're starting to figure it out, the season's over and you're going to a new team. So it's like, okay, take what I can from that and go on to the next team type of thing. And then the hardest thing too is you're meeting a whole new building of people. There's so many people involved in an organization, equipment, trainers, food staff, like everybody is new. And you're just like, your mind is blown with like having to names and like just who they are. It's getting to know people. Like it's hard to get to know like 100 people every year fresh. And it's just like, I got to do this again and again and again. And that gets tough.
Well, we're going to come back to mindset later, so we'll kind of talk about that. So that's like an important thing about making those transitions. So, well,
what was it like? What was it when you went back to the Vikings? Was it fun to be with Kirk again?
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah, and at the time, the Vikings, we had a really cool roster, great group of dudes. O-line room was awesome, and then obviously getting to be back with Kirk, it was like something we had talked about every year. Like, oh, maybe something will come up, and then it finally did, and it was like so cool to be able to get back and just kind of goof around a little bit. Like we did our first couple of years in Washington. And
did you guys room together, like just for old times, like have some sleepovers?
No. At that point, We both were married and he had kids, and so we were kind of past that point, but I like where your head's at.
Very cool.
Your buddies.
Let's see. Okay, then before we transition into your Niner years, I just had that, you were part of the Atlanta Super Bowl, with the New England, and I was just wondering about kind of career highlights. I mean, making the Super Bowl obviously has got to be, up there, but any memories or lessons around that game, as far as going through it, or if there's something else you want to chat about, just you've been at it a long time and played in a lot of football games. So obviously to me, that would be one that would stand out, but how was that, or is there anything else?
Yeah, it's, at the time, when we got hot at the end of the season there, like going into every game, we knew we were going to win. And that was like the coolest thing. I've never got to experience that before on a team, is like before the game's even kicked off, you're going to win, and having that mentality with the team. And we were just kicking ass like all throughout the playoffs. And then the Super Bowl, we started out hot, obviously. And, we were riding high, and, you never know, I guess, with Tom Brady and the Patriots especially. And I think that was like probably one of the hardest lessons to learn, is that like a game is never truly over until the clock hits zero. And we kind of experienced that a little bit this year, starting off with Detroit, being up 41-17, you're like, all right, game's over. But like in the back of my mind, every time we're up, I'm like, we got to keep, putting them on the gas, and can't let up, because like it can happen at any time. So that was like a really good lesson as far as like a team and like knowing when to finish. But like it sucks that you had to learn it in the Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty tough. Yeah. But that's really true though. And I know it's not Pop Warner, it's not high school. I mean, we don't call the dogs off, because just like you said, every team's so talented. One couple fumbles or interception and just weird stuff happens, and there's no stopping. So very good. George, what do you take that next category?
The Niners and the Kyle connection. All right, Tom. So you first signed with us last year, 2020 season, right? When did you sign with us? Was it OTAs?
Yeah, I think so. It was right before OTAs.
Oh, but then we didn't have OTAs, right? Because it canceled. That's what it was. So first time we really got to meet was via Zoom on a team meeting. Probably I scrolled past her face and was like, "Oh, Tom Compton, nice. Never met you before. Can't wait to sick Zoom.
Looks like a nice guy.
Looks like a
nice guy.
Looks like a cool dude. Can't wait to meet you, Tom. Great last name. And then we got to meet in training camp. So then we re-signed you to another 1-year deal. So you're with us this season. It's been an absolute blast playing alongside of you. So you played under Coach Shanahan when you were drafted in 2012 when he was in Washington, and then in 2016, and then now. What's the biggest difference between like 2012 and let's just say now? Besides being like a little scrawnier.
Yeah, I just say he never used to grow out a beard or anything back then, so he looked a lot younger. And 2012, he's an offensive coordinator. I'm a rookie, so like I'm not talking to him a whole lot, so I didn't really have whole much of a relationship. I was pretty much scared of everyone around me. I was like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to get cut. And like walk down the hallway and turn the other direction. But he's been the same guy. I feel like.
We've all been there, dog.
Yeah.
I did that
first year. This was terrifying.
Oh yeah.
And but he's always he's talked the same way. He's always been a big F guy. I don't know if you'd say that.
You can
likes
say
to throw
whatever you want.
the F bomb around a lot.
Love those F
bombs. Which I love. All my coaches from college and whatever have been doing that, so I'm used to that. And but the coolest thing, I guess, is that he's so knowledgeable and understands football He's not trying to force anything like an agenda. Like, he's trying to win the game and doing whatever it takes to win the game. And he understands like football. So like, it's kind of like a simple thing, but like not a lot of coaches understand that.
Yeah, he's there to win football games. And he talks about how to win games, and then, hey, this is how you lose games. So we're going to try to do what it takes to win games. And he's pretty straightforward with that. And yeah, it's very nice to be able to listen to that.
Definitely.
Let's see. Oh, this is a good one that we like to ask people. What's the hardest block for you? Like the hardest play for you in Coach Shanahan's system? And like obviously versus whatever front, but like what's like been one of the most difficult blocks for you?
I think for tackles in this system, you have to be able to cut off backside, and then you have to win open side reaches. Those are like the two biggest things, I think. And it's a lot of the stuff we do the most. So it's not only is it like, it's not like one of those things that comes up once or twice a game. It's like you have to be perfect on this like 10 to 20 times a game. Like, and if you don't win on either of those blocks, like the play's dead or like you get TFL. And so it's, I think cutting off especially is tough because they're a lot of the times already heading that way anyway. And being able to like press the block and give the back a read. I mean, it's difficult, but that's like, I love doing it. Like that's why I love this system.
He's in the gap ahead of you. You have to figure out a way to cut him off while pushing him that way as he's just driving through your face. And if you get pushed back more than 2 or 3 yards, you blow the whole play. Super
going
fun.
Lateral, but you're also going downfield. It's
try not to hold too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tom, most of the time on a 3 technique, you'll get a little chip, won't you, from the guard? A little bit. So,
you hope, yeah.
But sometimes
it
kind of depends on where the linebacker is and like where they're trying to get to and all that shit.
Well, there's sometimes George experiences it too. Like if we have like a 3 technique and a 5 technique, and he's like, "Hey, you and me are working together," I'm like, "Nah, dude, I gotta go with the guard over here." So sometimes the guard does that to me and is like, "No, I gotta work with the center." So then I'm on my own cutting off the 3. So
that's a bitch.
Most of the time you have help, but there's a few instances where you don't, and you just gotta run like hell.
The open side reach, because a lot of times the guard's working with the center, either versus a 3 technique if you had a 5, or even if the nose guard's in the A gap, there's typically chipping. So then you're solo a lot on what's a 5 technique a lot.
Yeah. So with those, the defender's trying to set the edge, and if you get stuck on the line there, the whole play kind of gets sandwiched and accordioned right there. Like, and then it makes the back have to do a quick cut back, and it just messes up the timing on everything. So I definitely try to take a lot of pride in like moving that block to give everyone else space so they can like time out their blocks.
Okay. We'll come back to some pass protection questions when we get into our conversation about the Rams with your good buddies coming off the edge this weekend. So that'll be great. All right. And let's see, George, the last one there.
Oh, what's the first time that we met, Tom? Do you remember?
I do remember. Do you remember?
I don't know. You have to remind me.
Well, that's not remembering.
We were in Levi's Stadium because we had to do the meeting up in like the United Club, and we had to walk up all those stairs to go to the meeting. And then we came back down, and I think we had like a team meeting in the bleachers. Yeah. And I think we were sitting pretty close to each other. And then there was just one of those deals where you like, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you," type of thing. Even though you obviously knew who I was, I didn't really know who you were. So it was like kind of awkward, but it worked out.
Sure. This little newbie boy.
That's funny.
Got him.
All right. Cool.
Pictures. Gosh, that was the worst. Because of COVID, we had to meet up in the press box for more space. And then, but to get over there is press box across. And so, they wouldn't let us walk across the field.
Mm-mm.
And so you had to walk all the way around the other side, up the whole first like section of the stadium. And then you'd meet in that area. And that's where our team meeting was for one day, because afterwards Kyle Shanahan was like, that was awful. I can't walk like that. Like we have to add 15 minutes a day just to walk up here. Cause I remember like Trent Williams, like he was like jogging around the field because he didn't realize how far away it was. He was almost late. But
there was a lot of angry people there.
We were all so mad. It was the first day of camp. We're all out there trying to not like, save our legs, like no chance. But like,
yeah,
we didn't meet there again. They figured something else out that was way closer. Thank goodness.
Yeah, me and stairs do not get along. I try to avoid them at all costs.
And then you remember the special teams meeting for like for the whole training camp was like on the 4th floor of the press box, and you couldn't take an elevator. So you said to ride escalators up 4 flights of stairs. You literally had to leave for meetings like 15 minutes early.
Yeah, I think I found a way to get the elevator somehow, because I remember going up and down the elevator sneakily.
Oh, I did too. I remember that they said don't take them, and then we started taking them after like the 3rd day. We're like, yeah, I'm not waiting anymore. That was fun.
Well, speaking of saving your legs,
clever translation.
We're gonna ride right into. So this is one of my new favorite parts of our show, but we call it our recovery roundtable. So now that you're in the 10th season, what have you learned about recovery?
So I'd say my first 4 to 5 years, I did hardly any. Because you're young and spry, and coming from South Dakota, it's not like we had a bunch of recovery methods other than just ice and ibuprofen. So you kind of just pick things up as you go, and when things start to hurt, you're like, I should probably start looking into doing stuff. And I've tried a whole lot of different things. Some things I like, some things I don't like. I've tried acupuncture. I'm not a huge fan of that, like the dry needling stuff. I know guys swear by it, but I hate it, so I don't ever do it.
We do. We just got treated like literally right before this.
Yeah, it's just not for me. And but like I'm a huge fan of like hot and cold tubs. And then those new like
we'd hot tub a lot together.
I hot tub so much. Yeah, it's a highlight of my day for sure. They have those new like guns, like the Hypervolt or Theraguns. Those weren't around my first few years, so that's like a newer thing that I've used quite a bit, and I love that. And then I think just like other like basic things that you don't think about, like sleep and drinking a lot of water, like just basic things that you might take for granted. I drink 8 of these a day.
8?
He's exaggerating, but
I was like, I mean, you got me. I was all in on that.
Dude, Tom, I got I like have something that tracks my sleep, and I slept for 9 hours last night.
That's amazing.
Can you? I don't know the last time. Like usually it says I sleep like 7:40, like 7:45. I got 9 hours of sleep, and I was like, wow, I'm more exhausted than I usually am. This is great.
I'm surprised you go to bed that early. I feel like you're up all night gaming or something.
Oh, yeah, no, Claire does not let me do that. I love you, babe.
That's good. That's good by Claire then.
Just off days.
I got it. I'm lucky to get 7, 8, and with having to get up early, going into work, and then being up with the babies is, you got to kind of manage that. So, but I definitely get at least 6, so that's helpful.
Are you and Tiff on like a really strict like sleep schedule with your babies?
Yeah, I mean Tiffany did all the work. I kind of just helped out, but
good for you.
I just made the baby.
Yeah, she's like the master of trying to get sleep figured out and like being pretty strict about it. So I'm just like, yeah, whatever, they're fine, they'll sleep. Like she's like, no, it's a plan. And I'm like, okay, you're right. So we got Tate sleep trained pretty quickly, and then obviously Theo's still really young. He's about coming up on 2 months. So it's basically just survival mode. Making sure he's eating and getting good naps and everything.
Well, shout out to Steph. That's awesome. Oh, go ahead.
Just to plug for sleep, there's just the research out on minimum 7. Anything you get over 8, it's not just the physiological with the body and the cell recovery and the regeneration, but also with the mind waves and all that kind of stuff about reducing stress, and cognitive, retention and everything. It's just, you can get to 8. It's just unbelievable the numbers now they've got on the research over the last 5 years with it. So anyway, so kudos for sleeping as much as you can. We'll give you a pass right now because you got a new little baby, but it's just amazing what it does for your body. So anyway, shout out for that. Okay. Sorry, Amy, go.
Do you do much like yoga or anything like stretching wise or mobility work?
Other than just kind of the stuff at work, I don't really do like traditional yoga. But I have recently done like, that HydroWorks pool next to the hot tubs. Like I'll get in there after the hot tub and kind of do like a water yoga thing. Like it's just easier on the body. I feel like, get a synchronized swimming team going.
Beautiful.
But just doing like stretches that are easier to do in water, obviously, than on land. I feel like that helps a lot out for stretching and whatnot.
Tom, one thing I'm really curious about in 10 years. And so like you said, you come out of South Dakota, and I don't know what your strength program was like, but just like at Iowa, it's a real, it's grind, all Olympic, super power lifting and all that kind of stuff. And, all whatever, but, long term, a lot of that stuff's not really that conducive or helpful for playing football. And as you age, your body starts to change and you need to kind of do different things. So I'm really curious, like, was there a time in your career, now you're at year 10, that you really looked at your strength training, and did you make any modifications or changes with that? And if so, what? And then same thing with kind of, and I know for O-lineman, it's a little bit different, your speed and agility, but you're still doing those kind of things. You're working the drills and all that, but did you make some modifications, over the course of your career as your body, was changing and you were learning more about things that were really important for football as opposed to just kind of throwing a bunch of weights around?
Yeah, definitely. Probably, like year 7 or 8, I started making some real modifications as far as strength training goes. I was, squatting really heavy and doing deadlifts, and like, it's just my back and my knees started hurting a little bit. And I was like, maybe I should calm this down. So I try to avoid deadlifts. I know George and all the tight ends love doing them every Monday. But I look at that and I just want to puke, because I'm like, that would just shred my back right now. And then as far as like squat and bench, I try not to go over like, say like 4 plates on the squat rack. Like to me, it's like I can hit that strength stimulus, and then like anything after that, I feel like is more wear on me. Obviously, everyone's different and how they do it. Some guys love throwing on a lot of weight, but just the way I know my body is, like I can hit a high weight, but I don't need to overdo it. And then, like you said, with the running stuff, like used to run a ton, like sprinting gassers, and now I'm just like, is that really gonna benefit me a whole lot? Like I'll get into shape, I'll get conditioned, but like just doing like more than you need to. I try to avoid just doing work just to do it. I want everything to have a purpose, and I like overwork. I feel like is, I don't know the research. It's just a feel thing, but it doesn't seem conducive.
We've always felt like there's only so much tread. There's only so much tread on the tire. So like you only do so many things so many times before your body just kind of gives out. So you want to like refine and be really strong and in shape. But if you do too much, then you're kind of just taking off a layer before the season even starts. Cause there's only so many reps you can physically take. Like there's only so many passes that a quarterback's going to throw in his career. Cause I know I was talking to somebody about this, but they said like Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw a lot in the off season. Well, I don't know his reasoning why, but my thoughts, maybe because he knows he only has so many throws. So why would you just wear down the arm? And that makes a lot of sense to me. Like I have to go out and I have to catch it. Like I have to need to catch footballs and lift weights, but there has to be like a smart way to do it. And it's not just bang your head against the wall and, hey, let's get the chalk out, get the smelling salts. And I'm going to try to deadlift 650 pounds right now. There's not really a need for it anymore. I mean, it's not like, Tom, how much stronger are you going to get this off season?
Right. Yeah. It's not a goal of mine. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm going to try and like PR on this. Like those days are behind me and I'm like, okay with that. And it's just like doing the football specific things that are necessary. And then everything else will kind of come with it.
Now
it's all about football specific.
I will say this, in 2000, I want to say it was 2015 or 2016, in winter workouts, when I was at Iowa, Marshall Yonda would always come back and train at Iowa, and he PR'd in like 2016 on his squat. And that was 12 years in the league at that point. And he had his PR. And we were all sitting there going like, oh my goodness.
What was it? Do you remember?
A lot of weight. I have no idea. It was just really impressive because I just remember everyone was talking about it. And I was like, geez Louise, dude, relax.
Do you guys both remember? I know that I've had this conversation with George, but like kind of that tipping point that you're talking about where like you have to, because in college, it's like you just kind of have to do what they tell you to do. And then once you're in the league, like you have to really be the one who's monitoring your body. So what year, like how old do you think you were when you started to kind of see that and like maybe had to say no to things to take care of yourself?
I think, well, like in college, it's fun. Like you're just like meatheads essentially, like, and then your first couple of years in the league, it's like super competitive and you're like, I want to be stronger than this guy type of thing. And then I don't know, it must hit everyone a little differently, but like I stopped caring what other people were lifting and like was just making sure I was making strides up by myself. And it was probably like maybe when I got to like Chicago, like year 6 or so, it was more about focusing on myself and kind of like what I can do to be better. Because before then it was just like, how much are you lifting? Okay, I'm gonna lift a little bit more. And then it's like, what are you really doing type of thing?
Yeah.
Go, bro. What are you gonna lift today? What are you gonna lift?
Yeah, it was definitely us. We were both competing in the weight room for sure.
Competing on kind of bench max. I love that.
Well, Tom, I want to peek 2 things though that you said. Well, one, I'm just gonna like, how often do you lift 400 pounds off the ground playing a football game? You never do. Like I just, the utility of squats and the damage it does to knees, thighs, and ankles. Anyway, so I'm over it. But I know there's a lot of debate about that. Yeah, a lot of debate. But anyway, but what you commented on though, I just want to like, if you could play that out for us just a second. You said football related movements. You were talking about football specific. And so have you found ways to specifically tailor your strength training to football, what you consider to be football specific types of lifts? Has that altered over the course of your career?
There's not like too many lifts that I can like replicate for football specific, but I know like when you use like the jammer press or like a lot more band work where you're doing the similar range of motion, even like hidden bags, like a punching bag, like going through like your typical just offensive line pass pro punch, like just getting that like stimulus over and over. It might not look like you're doing a whole lot, but like it's more of like that unconscious training of like, I'm just going to do this same movement, the same motion over and over. And then it like, I won't even have to think about it type of deal. So it's not really like, I'm not like, oh yeah, you should do like this press or whatever. Like it's just trying to replicate those little movements with whatever you got in the gym, really.
Yeah, things you do in the game.
Right. Yeah. And I think like our staff with the 49ers does a great job of like tailoring workouts to our position groups. Like in the off season, like OTAs and stuff, we're doing our like conditioning is running through football plays and like being down in your stance, getting out of your stance. It's not just like getting in a 40 stance and sprinting. It's like, no, get in your football position and then run from there.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Anything else on recovery, Emmy?
For younger players or even people who aren't players, if you could recommend like one form of recovery, what would it be?
Like Lakin suggested foam rollers. He was huge into rolling out. So something that's like available to everybody. It's like saying the Vasper or some things like that might not be the best.
Or like as a high schooler, like what do you wish you would have started doing, at the beginning?
Probably, I mean, just stretching at any capacity. Like I like using bands. But like when you're sore, just go through a whole stretch regimen and see how much better you feel. And like I would, when I was younger, just work out and then go sit and play video games or whatever. And you're just getting like everything's just locking up and tight. So it's basic stuff, but not a lot of people think to do it.
Cool. And then Tom, have you do you have kind of an offensive line person that you go back and work with in the off season? Is that something that's been part of your regiment?
No, not typically. Most years, I'm usually staying wherever I'm playing. Okay. So I'll work out at the team facility, and then whoever's there, kind of work out with them. And each year, it'll be a different group of players. And so that's kind of cool. But last year we finally bought a house. So I was living in Virginia, and I did a lot of just training by myself. And that was a whole different experience too. And I found out like how much I like that a lot too, is that I can kind of set my own terms and work on just what I think I need to do for myself, and not have to worry about even like slipping up and being like over competitive, trying to outlift or outrun somebody. It just really kind of changed the way I prepared.
Yeah. All right. Very cool. Okay. Emmy, anything else? Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm just like, that's a lot of self-awareness to really self-regulate and self-coach. And so I think that takes us right into the mindfulness part, Pops.
Well, very good. So, all right. So, Tom, we work in addition to mobility and all that kind of stuff, a little program called Mindful Awareness and Performance, which is a meditation, mindfulness-based kind of way to help players approach their mental preparation for the game. So, I'm just wondering. So like in our practice, there's mindfulness, there's meditation kind of work, there's breath work. We work on affirmations, writing out stuff, working on negative self-talk if people get some of that stuff, visualizations. I mean, there's a whole bevy of kind of things that we kind of work on. I'm just wondering what does your mental game look like? How's that evolved over the years? And like, what are a couple tools that have helped you kind of train and compete at the top level?
So the things that you were listing are definitely things that I'm looking to get into. That's kind of the next step of my progression. Currently it's a lot of I would probably say like visualizations, the biggest thing. Anytime we are installing for that week the playbook, I'm constantly visualizing like what does the perfect block look like and how can I execute that. And we watch the film, I look at the pictures, and I'm like, try like again and again, just over and over, picture myself going through that play, going through the footwork, going through the hand placement, and like, how can I be perfect on that play? And then when we get out to the field, I don't have to think about it kind of as much, and I can just go do it. That's like been the biggest thing I've used, especially this year. And then just being confident in yourself is huge. Especially with O-line play, like if you get beat, it can feel like the world's just gonna end, and you get so down on yourself. But it's like being able to move on to the next play and just being like, screw it, we're good, next play, and just learn from that and make sure it doesn't happen again, type of thing.
Yeah, Georgie, tell them about your reset. I got somebody knocking at the door. I just got to take that for a second, but yeah, talk about your reset, Georgie. I'll be right back.
Oh, yeah. Let's see, Tom. In when I was in college, I had an issue. Like I was big, like snowballer, like one bad thing would happen. And then like, if I messed up like an individual drill, my practice was shot like the whole day. Like, oh my God, my life's over. I got to get out of here. And it took me a couple years, but like I always did a reset thing. When I was in college, I had my white wrist tape on. I drew like a big red circle on it every day for practice. And if I ever fucked up, I'd just like take a deep breath. I'd hit the red reset button and I'd be like, all right, on to the next play. And just having that mindset as opposed to allowing things to snowball, that is the reason why I'm in the NFL today, because I stopped sucking for an entire practice and I would just suck for here. Hey, maybe 1 or 2 reps. All right, I got to get better at that. And also the realization that you can make mistakes as long as you're getting better from the mistakes.
Well, and also that you are going to make mistakes.
You got to, that is one thing. Like in the NFL, everybody on the field is an elite athlete. So like you're going to lose sometimes. If you're Trent Williams, you might not lose. Nick Bosa, you might not lose. But for us normal people, we might lose once in a while. You just got to be okay with that. But then you also have to have the mindset that like you don't want to ever get beat. And like, hey, I'm going to win every rep. But you just have to be like able to shut off, hey, that one rep that didn't work. All right, we're past that. Now I'm not going to lose again. I think that's always worked really well for me.
Do you have like a reset kind of tool like that, Tom? Like when you think of, because obviously our minds can kind of spin out and we can kind of get these negative voices in our head, like this guy's way better than me, or like, how am I going to play against this next team? And like, our mind starts to get the best of us. So when that happens to you, what do you like to do?
Well, I don't have like a literal reset button on my wrist. I like that though. I totally get where you're coming from though. It took me years to figure that out. I wish I could have done that sooner. But I think Kyle Shanahan, he really implanted something, which was on the play that you mess up, like what's your next play look like? And like, so anytime that I have a bad play, I'm like, what am I going to do on this next play? Like, how do I respond to that shitty play I just had? And most recently, it's been working a lot. Before, you might not be thinking about that. You might just be down because you're like, oh, I got beat. And it kind of, like you said, snowballs into the next play, but it's like, it's over. Like, what are you going to do on this next play? Like, how do you respond to that? So it's definitely along the same lines, like you're saying it. And it's tough to build that. I don't think you just kind of are born with that unless you're just a freak, I guess. But us mortals at least have to learn how to do that, and it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, indeed it does. I don't know. Did you watch the Monday night game with the Steelers and the Browns?
Most of it. I was kind of back and forth, but it was fun, yeah.
Well, I just felt like it's what happened. That's a rookie right tackle. That kid was playing, the Watt kid. And after the first sack, he just like his whole thing went down. He just kept, he was just hand wristing his outside arm, so he never had any leverage and he was getting around the corner so fast and he just never recovered from it. And you could just tell right from the, his sets kind of went wacky, the way he was leaning, you could just see it was a progression and he'd gotten in his head and it was kind of over. So that it's really, really important in that situation. Make sure you're kind of being able to flush it. So, all right. Sorry about that. I'm pretty sure. Did you tell the reset button story, George?
Yeah, we crushed the mindful awareness and performance section.
Okay, good. Why don't we move on then?
And now we're on to every fan's favorite section, the fashion review.
Look how cute you look.
Thank you. The fashion segment. Come at you live.
Real hair?
No, this is a wig.
Oh.
I literally wear.
It's actually part of my hair.
I wear a wig every Sunday for the fans, for the people.
Got it.
But we can talk about the fashion review. Tom, this is a section where we talk about something that we might wear to the upcoming game. You're a dad and all, so I know that your swag is unmatched. Do you have anything for us that you'd like to share with the fans?
Yeah, so I have zero game day swag. It's bad. I have like a rotation of polos that I wear. It's all basic stuff. These are the shoes that I wear, like very, very basic Nike shoes.
Comfortable.
I wear the same pair of black jeans every week, and then just have a rotation of polos. So not a whole lot going on here.
And what color are polos? Do you rotate? Do you have a rainbow color, or what do you got?
No, I try to keep it kind of neutral, gray, black, white, monochrome. My wife's shaking her head right now.
Okay, but for your lack of like eccentric game day outfit, I have to say you and Tiffany's Halloween swag is unmatched. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, go follow Tiffany Compton on Instagram. I died when I found your account and was going through. It is the best of the best. So just shout out to you guys.
Yeah, we saved the swag for the holidays.
Oh, it's the best. It's outstanding. What do you got?
What do you got, George?
My game day swag. Oh, hello. I know. I showed them really quick. These are the new Jordans that just came out. They're Jordan 11s. I'm pretty sure, but they're the cool grays. They're beautiful. They just came out. I haven't worn them yet. I got a matching set for me and my wife, so Claire's excited about them. You have to get matching sets for the wife, but I'm excited to wear these. They're beautiful, and I think they're gonna complete the fit this weekend. I think.
Cool. And do we have a Claire update at all? Does she know what she's wearing yet?
She does. She got a very, very cool hoodie. It's on her stories. If you guys want to go check it out. I can't remember who it's by, but it's badass.
Yeah, it's got someone sent her like some custom hoodie that has a bunch of Joker stuff all over it and like football stuff. Mm-hmm. It's very cool. So maybe she wears that with the cool grays. We'll figure it out. But that's all we have for the fashion segment. Thank you, everyone. You can go home now.
Good night. Okay, football. Pops, take it.
Quick. Okay, Niners come in 9-7, beat the Texans. Trey Lance's first game. We'll skip over that. Rams 12-4 beat the Ravens 20-19 on last second play. But let's see. Teams have played 144 times in their history. Niners lead the series 74-67 with 3 ties. They've won the last 5 games versus the Rams in a row. Okay, Rams, they come in. They've won their last 5 games after a 3-game skid in the middle of the season. And in there was the loss to the Niners where they came up to Levi's and put a beating on them 31-10. All right. They're back home now after 2 successful road trips. They beat the Vikings and the Ravens in the last 2 games, so they've been on the road for a couple of weeks. Happy to be in the friendly confines of SoFi Stadium, the bowl. So just checking in. It's a little bit later in the week, so you guys might know a little bit more. But anyway, what do we know and what do you expect, and any key players that you want to talk about?
Wow. Tom, you want to give it a roll? You want me to go?
I'll kind of start, I guess, and you have a different perspective a little bit. But obviously this is the biggest game of our season. So you're going to see our best effort. You're going to see their best effort too, because they're fighting for the 2 seed. Yep. So it's going to be a body bag game, not just an ice bag game.
Ooh, I like it.
And
yeah, let's clarify that. We mentioned this in the pre-show notes, but I mean, Niners come in, win, you're in. If you lose, the Saints have to lose to the Falcons, and so that's pretty important for us. And as you said, the Rams are looking to get the 2nd seed by winning out the Western Division outright. So pretty big game. Everybody's going to be playing everybody, and it'll be a full match.
Yeah, and obviously. Goes without saying, their front seven's impressive with Aaron Donald and the addition of Von Miller. It's a really good group, solid group, and we're going to be on our best handling those guys. And I don't know how much they do in the secondary. You might have more than that, George. But it's I got to play in this the first time we played them, about half the game, and that was kind of my first experience of Rams 49ers, and it was fun. It was competitive, and this one will be, I think, even more so.
Yeah, cool. I'm with you, Tom. I agree. It is the biggest game of the year. It's crazy that everything just kind of comes down to this, isn't it? All the off-season stuff, all the things you went through in August and September. Whoo, baby, it's here. So I think I know we're all excited. I think the vibe in the locker room is good. The practice today was really good. I think just, based on what we were doing. And I think we're all happy with our game plan. And, I think overall, like Tom said, they've got a very, very talented front seven. And they've also got a very talented back four. They can kind of do it all. They have a very good offense. Cooper Kupp's 100-ish yards away from breaking the all-time. Breaking Megatron's record. That's decent, I guess. Shout out Coop. I'm a fan of him. OBJ's having, I think he has like 5 or 6 touchdowns in 6 games, which is pretty impressive. And then, hey, Matt Stafford's not bad either. And they're getting their running back that tore his Achilles during OTAs. He's back, and he's a freak. And I know he's going to probably run really, really hard because it's his first game back. It's going to be a great game. We have to play at our best if we want to have a chance. That's basically what it is. And so I can't wait to go out there and watch our best players play their best ball, and then other guys step up and play some spectacular ball. I can't wait to see it. Is that enough of a breakdown for you, Pops?
I'm excited. Let's go, man. I'm getting in the car right now. I'm heading out. I'll be in LA. All right. Perfect. All right, Tom, any final words on that? Are you good?
It's perfectly wrapped up. I like that.
I like, though, the body bag, not just an ice bag game. That's pretty good.
Real quick, I don't know if we've talked about this, but the ice bag game, Coach Shanahan's talked about that. I think the first time he brought it up, I don't remember it before this, but like 2019, he's like told the story of I think it was a boxer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a boxer in a fight, and he was like, hey, this is going to be an ice bag game, an ice bag match or a fight, because he knew that it's going to take absolutely every amount of effort. And then when he came home, he was going to have to sit down and just ice his entire body because he's going to be so sore, so tired, exhausted to get through the whole fight. And he said that in 2019 when we went to the Rams, he said, hey, this is going to be an ice bag game. And holy cow, was it? That was, I think it was like 19-7 or something, maybe might have been the final score, but it was just a physical game of football the entire way through. And that's kind of what it was. And he doesn't use that term often, but it's basically every time we play the Rams, it's about the same game. Is we have to play as physical as we possibly can because that's what we're really good at, is being physical. And now Tom is talking about the body bag game, which I 100% agree. It basically is.
Go sell out. Okay. All right. Well, excellent. Emma, any insights on the game you want to add?
This is going to be my first time at the stadium, so I'm pretty hyped about that. Thank you, boys. So
nice.
I'm going to be pretty dialed in.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, as far as another big part of our show is service and giving back. And so we're always looking to give back and to help others. So Tom, what community-based activities have you been involved with while being in the NFL?
We were kind of talking about this a little bit earlier, and each team I've been on, they have a great community outreach program. And I'm not like, I don't have my own kind of stuff that I do. I try to just help out with others and their things. So, back in Washington, it was getting toys for kids around Christmas. With the Falcons, there's a lot of stuff for veterans. Like each team kind of does a lot of good stuff with the communities. And I guess like the biggest thing that I'd been a part of was with Minnesota. A friend of mine growing up who I played football with my whole childhood, he came to me about it's called Hope Fieldhouse, and they're trying to build it in our hometown of Rosemount. And there's just not like an area for kids to do sports or after school stuff. And it was just a great opportunity to have a sports complex in our hometown, because a lot of times teams will have to go to different surrounding cities to compete, whether it's basketball, volleyball, baseball, any of that stuff. And so they finally got that built last year, 2 years ago. And I guess it's been taken off. I still need to get back. And I think this off season, we're going back in the summer to check it out. And it's just an awesome opportunity for the community to have sporting events or really anything to get together, which is something I was jacked to get a part of.
Does it have a statue of you up front?
No, I hope not, at least.
No, like you spiking a football. That's what it should be. Very natural.
Not me.
Cool. All right. Let's see. All right. Any other, well, good. And so just kind of general encouragement, and the Niners do a whole bunch of stuff, and there's a lot of things going in there. So, all right, George, you want to close it out?
Yes, Tom, this is the last part of our show. It's very easy. All right. So we kind of go with where is the hope is the question, right? So like just something that gives you hope, whether it's today, whether it's been this past year, something that's happened in your life that makes you excited about moving forward. So like, for example, I started one off was like back in September, something that gave me hope was football being back. Another thing was fans being in the stadium, the holidays, being around family, like just things like that give me hope. And I'll start this one off too. I actually haven't thought about it yet, but I'm going to think of one really quick, but let's see, something that gives me hope, the start of the new year. It really does. 2022, just getting through another year. And it's just kind of crazy how fast they go the older you get. That's been a wild ride for me, but just the anticipation of like an entire year ahead of you. And I know like we're in the end of our season, but it's just the start of your new year. Like what can you accomplish this year? What can you do? What changes can you make to make you a better person? There's just, I feel like it's just kind of an overall mood or kind of around the world, or it's just like, hey, like what is going to be different this year? And I think that's just kind of that anticipation is kind of exciting, and it makes me hopeful. It makes me excited. But yeah, that is one thing that gives me hope. And also, side note, this is one thing I just have to say it, and you can yell at me for it. But so 2022, if you spell out, so 2022 is just saying 2022. So it's saying it's the same year. And I saw that on Instagram, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the smartest, dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
That's a good way to put it.
So, I was so angry when I saw it.
It's
the smartest, dumbest thing I've ever seen. But when I saw it, I was like, yeah, New Year 2022. That bothered me. Run it back. All right, Tom, what gives you hope this year?
Gosh, it might be a little. It's not as like big picture as that. It might be a little more selfish, but just the opportunity to be a dad. It's crazy. It's different. I got him right here. He's eating. I mean, that right there.
Woo!
He's milk drunk. That gives me hope. Just trying to set a good example, and showing them how to do things the right way. It's really actually changed. I mean, obviously everything in my life, but just how I go about with football. Definitely more locked in, more prepared, and going out there every play, playing it like it's my last, because it definitely could be. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
That's awesome.
Well, there's nothing like it. I would say most impactful thing other than getting married was having those two little squirts right there. And so it totally changes your life, and, center of the universe completely changes. So that's pretty cool. So, well, we're hopeful with those two little babies in your place. That's pretty cool. Woo! And your gorgeous wife, Tiffany. So congratulations for all that. Tom, we just want to say thank you so much for sharing time, and really appreciate all the insights about your career. I mean, that's really helpful. I mean, I think that's really good stuff. So wish you the very best, and we'll be watching. Obviously, we'll be in the stands checking you out and watching those pass sets and terrorizing those poor Rams the whole game. So be sure tell Vaughn hello for me when you see him, okay? All right, Emmy, anything you want to add?
No, thank you so much, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. I'll see you tomorrow, locker buddy. Last fun fact, me and Tom Compton, our lockers face each other this way.
Ooh.
He's right next to Jimmy G too, but we're like a solid 10 feet away from each other at all times.
Nice.
And it's wonderful. It's
definitely the best area of the locker room for sure.
The best view? Was that what you were going to say?
It did sound like
you get a peek of a tattoo you have now. I didn't know before.
Relax.
I don't know if that's public knowledge, but
actually, fun fact: if you watch, Greg Olson made me show it while filming Pardon My Take, No free shout outs, but yeah, I definitely did. And then they screenshot it and put it on Twitter. It was sick.
Good.
Thanks guys.
Well, yeah,
All right.
thanks for having me. It was awesome. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, Bob. See you, man.
Well, good luck. Let's finish it out. All right. See you, Thomas. Thank you. All right, here we are. We are with, I want to read the bio for Gunnery Sergeant Chris Holm with the United States Marines. So we'll try to do that. Born in West Covina. Is that right, Chris? Covina? Okay. California, to Matthew Holm and Caroline Thompson, another radical family where the wife kept her maiden name, I'm guessing. So as my wife did, actually it was worse for because I got married and a year later, she changed her name back from mine to her maiden name because she couldn't deal with it. But that's a whole nother story. All right. Chris is happily married to his wife, Melissa, and together they have 3 children, sons Ryan and Peyton, and daughter Emma. He's a gunnery sergeant, gunnery sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps, and a fire support chief assigned to 1st Battalion, 11th Marines, based out of Camp Pendleton, California. He has 4 combat tours to Iraq and Afghanistan and 1 tour on the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit. His likes and hobbies range from spending time with family, all things Star Wars. So that's a good chat. We should probably put some of that in. Grilling, smoking meats on Sunday, watching the Niners, playing video games, and much, much more. So, Chris, want to welcome you. Thank you for taking the time to be on the podcast. All right. Then our other guest.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.
Yeah, welcome. Okay, so next guest we have on is Alec Mayhem, a good family friend. So born on April 5th, 1996 to David Mayhan and Marcia Piccone in Denver, Colorado, attended the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, graduated in 2000. No, Dave. I know, I always forget you went to Ann Arbor. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. With a degree in economics, commissioned in the Marine Corps in 2018, currently serves as first lieutenant at 1st Battalion, 11th Marines as a fire support officer, has 1 deployment on the 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit as an artillery platoon commander. Hobbies mainly revolve around the outdoors of Southern California. We love that, including skiing, running, surfing, hiking, and CrossFit. Enjoys watching football, movies, and visiting friends when given the opportunity with work. Pops, these kind of sound like dating profiles, the way that you wrote them. I mean, like, I like them, but
no, I wrote them, so maybe
they wrote
you wrote them? I was like,
yeah,
this is so not how you usually write these. Like, what is going on? Okay.
Well, I know. Well, read that, and then I'll tell the rest of the story. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Alec has known Chris since they deployed on the 15th MU in 2020. They have worked in the same section for the past 6+ months. Most Mondays are spent talking about the last Niners game. Love that. All right.
Okay.
All right. And then, so Pops, tell us about that. But then we also have to get into a little. So Alex's dad, Dave, is good buddies with Pops. And that's kind of how the whole connection has started. So Dad, how did we get here?
Yeah. So this is how we got here. But I was just going to say, most of the other bios I get, they're like 3 pages and they're acronyms. Like I've got no clue. Right. And then all this stuff. So which guys, if you're watching, that's not a complaint, but we've had to decipher. We spent a lot of time. These were great, Alex. So I really thank you for that. So it gives us a little nutshell and then we'll get into some more stuff in detail later. So, all right. Yeah. So back in the day. All right. So Dave Mayhan, all right, originally from Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska, I believe, right? Was it Omaha South? I can't remember. He's told me a bunch of stories about his glory days back in Omaha and what a badass he was and all that shit. But anyway,
I'm sure he did.
So Dave and I both played at the University of Iowa. We both played offensive line, and so got to know each other there. Dave, much smarter than I ever was, really went to class and studied, but actually was a very, very good football player as well. So we've been very good friends since then. And actually, in my senior year, I had a knee injury about halfway through the season when we were at the University of Michigan and defeated them 9-7 when they were ranked 3rd in the country. Thank you very much. That's back in
he showed me that game and broke it down play by play.
Oh yeah, 1981. Yeah. Anyway, so actually, Iowa had the best winning percentage against Michigan from 85 to 92, almost. Through the 90s, almost until 2001 or so, of any team in the country. It was really weird. But anyway, that's another story. So anyway, when we were doing all this, so Dave and I kind of stay in touch on some other things, mostly kind of, a little bit of holding each other accountable and just, what are you doing for goals and all that kind of stuff, and swapping stories about our kids and all that thing. But when he found out that we had the podcast and what we were doing for our theme, he obviously went through, and we have kind of followed Alec's career really forever because our family loves going to Colorado, and we would always come out, hit Denver, stay with the Mayhans for about 2 days, get a little climatized, to the elevation. And then we'd often head off in the mountains, go camping somewhere and climb a couple 14ers. So we saw Alec as he was growing up over those years. I mean, a lot of years in a row there for a while. So that was kind of our standard summer trip. So anyway, and then upon the decision from high school, you were interested in lacrosse, I believe, and got,
Yep.
I think there was a recruiting connection for lacrosse at Michigan. And then when you eventually got there, I'm not sure exactly what all happened with that, but I know then got involved with the Marines and school and all that kind of stuff. And after you were done. So anyway, so Dave called and said, hey, I was talking to Alec and his gunnery sergeant, Chris Holm. They're in Southern California. And if you guys are doing that, would there be a game that it would work out for them to be on the show? Which it sounded like a great connection. So we're glad to do that, Alec, just to see you. But I said this before we got going, a lot of it was, and I can't share that for Dave, and I'm sure that you're going to see him on Sunday because he'll be at the game when we go down to the Rams. A very, very heartfelt level of gratitude toward you, Chris, for your role in Alec's life and taking care of him and shepherding. And I don't want to overstate it or under it. I don't really know all the details. I'm just repeating kind of what Dave shared with me, and felt a very deep sense of gratitude and thankfulness for your role with Alec. So while he was beaming with pride too, and let me know all the great things that Alec had done as well. So, which is all very, very cool. So we're very proud of you as well, Alec. Chris, thank you for all the things that you have done for him and for, I'm sure, all of the men and women that you have shepherded over the years and have taken care of. So, which it kind of sounds like that's what a gunnery sergeant does, try to help people not get shot right away and learn this list. But anyway, so that's how we kind of got here. So anyway, all right. Alec, you want to add anything or is that okay? Is that pretty decent?
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
You know what I was starting to say when at Michigan, I got derailed there because I got excited thinking about beating Michigan again. But when I got hurt that game, and then Dave had been playing guard for the most part, and he was rotating in on that. And then he took my place at left tackle, actually, and kind of finished out the year. And then I came back, we played the bowl game, kind of shared time together again. But anyway, he did a great job because he really never played much offensive tackle and got to fill in there the last part of the season for that. So anyway, so it all worked out. So we've been good friends ever since and very grateful. He also went to law school though. So we both went through that thing. So we've kind of traded law stories over the years as well. So, and he has a much deeper love for the profession than I ever did. So I give him credit for that. Yes, Emmy, go.
So George and I, we were pretty athletic growing up, and I never felt more unathletic than when we would come to your house and you'd be like, play lacrosse with us. And we're like, what is this sport? Just no concept of it. You made it look so easy. George was like, oh yeah, we can do this. It was not good. It was like we were playing with our eyes closed. So there's a whole different level of hand-eye coordination with that sport.
Yeah, it was always kind of funny when you guys would come over because it was the Midwest kind of typical childhood and then Colorado childhood. I mean, a lot of similarities, but different hobbies and things like that. We kind of always swap those.
Different language. Okay. Well, let's, Chris, we'll start with you, but we want to get a little backstory on you. So growing up in enlistment, maybe take us all the way back. So what was family life like for you? And maybe, what were some of the toughest or best lessons that you learned from your family as you were growing up?
Okay. So growing up as a kid, I wouldn't say anything too crazy, average life, kid life, I guess. It was right about before high school. Unfortunately, my parents got a divorce, went through that whole thing. That's why it said Caroline Thompson on there, because she kept the name of her next husband. Went through a divorce, went through all that type of stuff. Not a fun time, especially for, a young teenager, growing up and whatnot. So I definitely learned a lot from that as far as how to deal with certain things. Had to, grew up at a pretty young age to make some pretty adult decisions as far as hey, who are you going to stay with, mom or dad or something like that. So it was kind of rough during that time frame. But other than that, I mean, I played high school football, loved it. I was probably the skinniest defensive end on my team. I think my senior year, I was probably 165, 170 playing DN, and the average.
Yeah, baby, come on.
Was 225 and up. So, it was stick man on the field with a helmet and shoulder pads. But
I played lacrosse.
Yeah, that was the thing. We didn't have lacrosse in my area. It was football, soccer, baseball, and that was about it. We didn't have much of a program up in Taft, California. But other than that, I mean, it was decent. Like I said, a couple ups and downs here and there, but, grew from it, learned from it. I think it's definitely show me, influenced the way that, me being a father nowadays, how I handle things, how I work with my, one and only love of my life, my wife, Melissa. We're a great team, take care of our kids and, just, yeah. And then came the Marine Corps.
Okay.
Yes. Well, so what drew you to enlistment then? And when did you enlist? And then why the Marines?
I would say probably the biggest influence in my life that definitely led to me joining the Marine Corps was my grandfather, Donald Holm. He was originally a Marine, then was drafted into the Army after he was medically discharged from the Marine Corps after an injury. Korean War kicked off. He got drafted and he was a machine gunner in the Korean War. Got Purple Heart, served honorably, came back and started his family. And really, he was like a big influence in my life, especially driving me towards the Marine Corps. Told me all kinds of crazy stories and whatnot. But that was the biggest thing. And then the other thing too was just seeing like the commercials, reading brochures, seeing, advertisements for the Marine Corps. And, it's like, okay, I'm kind of interested in this. I want to challenge myself. And, sure enough, when I enlisted in 2002, went to boot camp, discovered what I was looking for. And almost 20 years later, here we are. It's been a heck of a ride too. And meeting all kinds of great people, going through a lot of, tough, unique and great situations, meeting great people like Alec, which is weird to call you Alec. I'm used to calling you sir.
I know. Yeah. We had to talk about that, but
yeah. So it's like, fit rebel flick anyways. No, it's been an adventure for sure. But it all started pretty much with my grandfather. My father definitely, shared some stuff, some stories with me being a soldier as well. But I chose the Marine Corps because I wanted the toughest branch. So.
All right. Well, good. Well, Alec, we kind of talked about your growing up in Denver and your mom and dad and your family setting and all that, which I know pretty well just from being around them. But what were talk to us a little bit about, maybe some core lessons from family, that you look back on that you took that have helped shape you a little bit. And then tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the Marine Corps and eventually enlisted after college.
Yeah. I guess so. Kind of similar to Chris, like a lot of family background with the military. And that was something that my dad actually talked about a lot because, after Iowa, after football, I don't know if you got to remember like what was going on with his eye, but he had to have surgery pretty quickly. And like that kind of transitioned him. And I think he was just medically ineligible. And that was something that he always wanted to do because two of his brothers did it. His father, my grandfather, was a medic in World War II through, most of the second half of the war in Europe. So that was something that, was kind of always brought on as, an honorable thing to do, a sense of service. So growing up, I always kind of figured that was going to be something I wanted to do. Having two parents who are lawyers, my mom was not going to let me enlist right away. Right. College was always kind of the first thing you had to do. But that stuck with me, when I was at Michigan and kind of just looking at all the different paths, kind of drew me to the Marine Corps around the second half of my time at Michigan. So I got interested there, kind of joined a program that allowed kind of transition into the, doing the officer thing towards the second half and kind of started from there. Once I graduated, I did some training before my senior year, officer candidate school then in 2017 and then commissioned in 2018 and kind of have been doing it ever since.
All right. Well, very good. Okay. All right. We got the background story. All right. Roll, Emma. Go.
Check. So Chris, when did you go to basic training and where was it for you? Can you kind of take us through that process? Maybe like what day one was like for you?
Oh, sure. So I originally enlisted from Temecula, out of that station. And then I went to boot camp in San Diego, MCRD San Diego. I went to boot camp 18 November 2002 and graduated Valentine's Day 2003. So that's when my journey into the Marine Corps began. And boot camp on the enlisted side, I know it's a lot different for the officers, but for the enlisted side, it's pretty down and dirty from like minute one. It's go, 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 sprint, sprint, sprint. Everyone's screaming at you. They're back then grabbing you, yanking you around, stuff like that. Definitely in your face, and it's a culture shock for sure. But it definitely, like it says in the brochures and whatnot, boot camp breaks you down from being a nasty civilian. No offense, sorry. That's what we call it, but that's what I used to say for my recruits whenever I was a recruiter.
So nasty.
But they break you down as a civilian and then build you back up as a Marine with like our, leadership values, principles, ethos, all that stuff, Semper Fi, all that crap. And then from there, you're raw Marine, ready to rock and roll and go on to the next step. But it's definitely a humbling experience, regardless of your background. When you go through boot camp, graduate, you're like, holy crap, that was probably the toughest thing I've ever been through aside from like combat, but it was a good experience. I'm glad I don't have to ever do it again, but it was a good experience.
What was like the biggest wake up call for you as you first started that process?
Having another grown man telling you when you can go to the bathroom and when you can't. That was definitely an experience. I'm pretty sure Alec could definitely test that for OCS, having drill instructors as well. But yeah, just, if you got a pee real bad in your information, it's like, nope, you're going to wait. I'm like, okay, this sucks, but okay. But no, in hindsight, it's that sense of discipline, that the Marine Corps' version of discipline, what they instill into you, and it's very eye opening. But at the same time, it sticks with you. It's something, and it's a lot of things you could definitely apply later on in life. So
yeah. Okay. Well, Alec, what about you?
So I mean, I think there's always kind of the age-old question, and I don't think it's really a contest. Boot camp versus officer candidate school. They try to make it similar, but go through the first things initially, and I definitely think that was a big wake-up call, especially for me, kind of being, I would say, more ignorant to those kind of like enlistments and posters, things like that. Like that was never really what I want to do. I kind of just was like, I want to go be a Marine, and I think probably for like my recruiter, it was pretty easy because I just in 2 weeks, I already submitted my application and everything. So. But I didn't really know what I was getting into. I didn't know rank structure, things like that, like very basic stuff. I just kind of walked in pretty random. So I think that, those first few days, I remember just like you losing your phone, talking to your loved ones. And I think the one thing for us is, they put you in these lines, they scream at you all night, the first night, things like that, just to kind of rattle you. And it just, yeah, I guess in hindsight, you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. But at the time, there's definitely that like sense of like, I should just turn around right now. Like there's no way. This is not what I wanted to do. This is what I thought I was going to be doing,
Yeah. And then,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say one thing for sure, ask any Marine, like, if you want like get an idea of like what Marine boot camp is like, ask Marine what his drill instructor's names are, and he'll tell you their names. Like for me, it was drill instructor Staff Sergeant Pipkin, drill instructor Staff Sergeant O'Brien, drill instructor Staff Sergeant Hicks, and senior drill instructor Staff Sergeant Gray. And that was almost 20 years ago. And those dudes definitely had influenced my life. And I'm sure, Alec, you probably do the same thing, more or less. I'm not putting on your spot though, but.
No, I remember 2 of them, but I can't name all 3, so I'm not gonna try.
So, and then Alec, for you, like, because you're the first person that we've talked to that enlisted like in college then. So did you do that all through Ann Arbor?
Yeah, there was a recruiting station. So for the differences in officer selection office, so they start to recruit people who are attending college or who have a college degree and put them on the officer track. So that's kind of the difference between me and Chris. Like he went up through the enlisted side, I went up through the officer side, and then, kind of where he's at now, kind of our roles match up to some extent, but there's a lot of differences. We could kind of go, I'm sure, more into depth on like work and things like that, but of course.
And any big lesson that you learned from basic training?
Yeah, just humility. I want to say I kept a lot of my books, like our little kind of like Write in the Rain notebooks. And I remember my platoon commander at the time, the first thing he did, we pulled up a page, and he's like, I want you to write as large as you can to fit the page. It's not about you. And I think that was something that really has stuck with me since then. Like, I still have it. I've carried it, through multiple apartments, houses, from Virginia to Oklahoma to California. And like, anytime I have to remember that, like, it's not about you. Like, it's about the Marines that you're serving. Cause like, they're not serving you. That's kind of what you want to learn as an officer. That's been the most important lesson that I think I learned.
That's a pretty powerful lesson, really, for a lot of folks, because a lot of folks spend their entire lives thinking that they're the center of the universe and everything's rolling around them, and it's a constant narrative and story about them. And I'm kind of a stoic reader myself, so the guy's got a great book out. One of them is Ego's the Enemy, and it's a lot about displacing that with an eye toward the greater good and how we serve community using our skill sets and doing some of those kind of things. But some kind of awareness that not everything is about you. In fact, really hardly any. Just about no. It's a pretty small little pool. So good. All right, great. All right, then let's see. All right, what in the heck's a gunnery sergeant? Why is that different than a staff sergeant and all them other sergeants? So there's a whole string of them. So tell us about the whole sergeant thing and what is a gunnery and why is it different? What do you do?
Okay. So for a gunnery sergeant, it's E7 on the enlisted side as far as like the pay scale. It's the 7th rank. So it's a staff NCO or staff non-commissioned officer, but it's more of a senior staff NCO, senior leadership on the enlisted side. Biggest thing is being that experienced, a service member. Has been around the block a few times, has gone through all the ranks, and now make sure that supervising the setup of training, classes, make sure Marines know where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do, and then pretty much supervise, staff sergeants on down. Make sure they're doing their job, make sure they're where they're supposed to be at. But at the same time, also advising officers as far as like, working with Alec or working with a bunch of the other first lieutenants or captains we have in our section, and bringing my experiences from past deployments, techniques and tactics that have worked, that haven't worked, and being able to help, guys like Alec out to make, sound decisions. And at the same token, he's going to make the call at the end of the day, like, hey, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. And I back him up and support him on that and make sure the troops know, like, hey, we're doing this. So it's like a supervisor of the supervisors on down, if you will. But at the same time, I'm also that conduit that links back to the E8s, the first sergeants, the master sergeants, sergeants major, master guns, being able to be like, hey, this is what the Marines are doing. This is how we're accomplishing the mission, which then leads back up to like, the majors, the colonels, generals, and so on. So being a gunnery sergeant is probably one of the best ranks. I love it.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. All right. Well, then First Lieutenant Mayhan.
Yeah.
Tell us for those nasty civilians, enlighten us on where First Lieutenants.
There are people who have told us that. I feel like people have been lying to us.
Yeah. Tell us where where's that fit in? Like, where have you been through and all that kind of stuff, and when you're going to be a general and all that kind of thing? What's happening?
That'll be a day. But so when you commission, right out of for me, it was a week after I graduated college. You commission as a second lieutenant, which is 01, like the first rank, and 2 years after your commissioning date. I don't know if it's the same for all the branches. I would assume so, but I know in the Marine Corps, 2 years after you commission, you pin on first lieutenant. And then for us, it's kind of different. You go up to captain and then major and things like that. But first lieutenant's kind of the middle of the company grade. So kind of, what you would imagine, who deal with platoons, companies, the most connected to the Marines. So where I'm at right now, I'm kind of finishing up my first contract, but it's an interesting rank, I think, for the lieutenants, because, me as second Lieutenant Mayhan, when I commissioned in May, even though I've only done 3 months of training, was different than me 2 years down the road. And then when I picked up first lieutenant about a year and a half ago, it's a different person than first lieutenant now. So I would say for us, it's just a little bit like you spend a little bit more time in those ranks, and early on. So it's a little bit interesting, but yeah, that's where I'm at right now. And then we'll kind of move up from there.
All right. And you mentioned that toward the end of your first contract, you're just like them NFL players, you're on a contract. Yep. So are you negotiating are you renegotiating your second contract, or what are the plans for that?
Yeah. So, kind of just figuring out, next steps and, you know, where that'll all fit. You know, when you're several months out, you kind of just have to start figuring, you know, what the Marine Corps wants you to do. And then, you know, if you're looking to transition out, things like that. So, you know, I think everyone goes through the periods where they're, you know, unsure of the next steps, and, you know, it's kind of where I'm at right now.
All right. Very cool. We're figuring it out. Okay. Then,
well, Chris, do you have any, can you tell us a little bit about when you first met Alec, and any good stories about him that you can share?
So when I first met him, it was actually at the FSCC in our office, because he came from India, correct? India
Yep.
Battery. Yeah, came over from India Battery over to our section to do the fire support role. We did deploy together, but he was on a different ship than me. I was on the Macon Island. I believe you're on the San Diego.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So we didn't have a whole lot of interaction there, but you know, when I met him in the section, you know, right off the bat, you know, thought he was just absolutely great guy, great leader. Definitely knows his stuff. Wasn't afraid to voice his opinion, which I think is awesome. Being able to have the cojones to get up there and say what's on your mind, say if something is going to work, not going to work, and be able
did you say cojones?
Balls, you know, eggs.
No, I'm good.
I'm
I'm good. I just want
me to say balls first?
No, I've used it and all that. I just that's kind of a term of art. I like it. So that's like Marine sophistication.
Yeah, I don't know what the kids say nowadays. I'm old. So.
No. That's I'm 62, so I'm super old. Yeah, I got no idea. I'm used to that, so that was good.
No, absolutely. But yeah, the biggest thing is just, you know, right off the bat, him and a lot of his fellow first lieutenants that came to our section, just all the same, which I think is great. Especially, you know, being a Marine officer, you definitely need to be that. And we don't have any crazy stories yet. I mean, he hasn't been around me long enough to get in trouble with me. So then that's actually a good thing. But no, overall, all seriousness, great guy. He takes care of the Marines, which is like the biggest thing for me, is taking care of the Marines. And that's what he does. And I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Alec, all right. What do you remember about meeting the Gunnery Sergeant, and how did that go? And any stories about the Gunnery Sergeant when you and all the top flight officers are in the back room smoking cigs and drinking coffee and telling stories about the enlisted guys? What do you guys say?
I would say that's the gunnies more. They like to hang out in the back room.
Do they?
That's more of an intimidating. I got to knock on it. I'm kind of afraid to go in there. But so I mean, yeah. So like Chris said, we were deployed on the same MEU, but the way artillery officers work, it's a little bit different. I can do either fire direction or fire support. So I was on the fire direction side, like actually working with the cannons. And then Chris was the fire's chief. So even though he probably didn't really know who I was, because I was a smaller role at the time, I had definitely heard his name. And then, you know, we tangentially, you know, had worked together in exercises and things like that while we were on the deployment, even though we never really worked together. And like he said, once I ended up coming over to the fire support section, that's when we actually started to kind of have more of like a direct day-to-day working relationship.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Well, any other story from that deployment you guys want to share? I mean, I don't know exactly what all you guys did. Sounds like you're on some damn big boats going across the ocean, shooting off some guns, but I don't know what else is there to.
Cannons first. Cannons.
Yeah.
It was
Cannons.
It was the COVID tour from hell. As when we were on that deployment, that's when COVID was at its worst, and so we originally had an itinerary for different spots we're supposed to go to, but it completely changed because a lot of ports and places were shutting down because of COVID. So we were very limited to what we could actually do. But we did spend some time in, you know, specific areas, whether it was like, you know, Africa or whether it was like, you know, the Middle East. Some, you know, we did go places, but probably not the spots that, you know, here I wanted to go to, especially what we were originally tracking. But all in all, you know, I mean, it is what it is. That was my first MEU ever because I'm used to just doing combat tours. So, but yeah, it was sucked wearing masks on ship and trying to stay 6 feet away when you really don't have a whole lot of room in the boat. So
right.
Yeah.
And did you have outbreaks on the ship? Did you have some?
So the Macon Island,
yeah,
a couple of cases. I think the San Diego actually had it the worst, right?
Yeah, there were some cases. You know, I think it was just more of like a perennial problem, like just kind of like a common theme throughout, which, you know, it was no different than the real world. But I think, you know, when you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean, you know, and that's your world, right? You kind of think that that's what's going on. But yeah, so just to kind of like background off of like what Chris meant when he said like wasn't what we were planning on going to. The difference with a MU traditionally is you do, I mean, obviously they have force response and things like that, but when you go out, a lot of times you're expecting to like stop at different ports, different areas, you know, whether it be in like Southeast Asia, up through the Asian countries, India, the Middle East, things like that. So it's traditionally for a Marine deployment that's not like in Iraq or Afghanistan where you're going somewhere for 6 months. You're expected. It's almost a cruise to some extent. So that's if you hit it on a right tour, you're expected. You know, you're going to stop in 15 ports or whatever and basically see the world for free.
Got it. So that's a pretty good deployment, or at least least threatening if you're not facing a global pandemic.
Of course.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, cool. Then, Chris, so you've got 4 other deployments, which included, I'm guessing, I don't know, 1 or 2 in Iraq and a couple in Afghanistan over the years that you've been out. Those aren't just a cruise where you're seeing the ports and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I'm just going to kind of toss it up. I don't know what, how were those, what you feel comfortable sharing about with us, but wherever you want to go with that. But I mean, I know folks are always very curious about those because you see things on the TV and the movies and read things and all that kind of stuff. So just what was a little bit of your reality with those things? And I guess the other piece is just, well, why don't you do that? And then just, obviously, how it was coming back and forth. I mean, 4 deployments seems like that's up there a ways, that's a lot of deployments. And so how you've kind of dealt with that, but where did you go? What happened? If you want to share any of that.
Sure, absolutely. And just to kind of clarify too, if I didn't do recruiting, probably would have been even more combat tours, but it just worked out that way, and I had to do recruiting for a few years. But kind of start off, my dad was a cop, and so obviously being a cop, you hear stories of what happens on the street, the kind of people he had to deal with, the kind of evil that humans are capable of. And as a kid, you don't really grasp that. Like, sure, you watch a couple war movies or some horror movies or something like that, and it's just, that's Hollywood. But going on my first combat tour to Ramadi, Iraq in 2005, that's where you get the first taste of like just how truly evil humans can be, and dealing with Al Qaeda back then. That was the flavor of the day in Ramadi, dealing with those guys, seeing like what happened to the actually legitimately good people over there that just simply wanted to live their life, want to take care of their families, and just go day by day. You get over there and you do your job, and you see some gruesome stuff that sticks with you, and it's not pleasant. But the important thing was we're going over there to try to help those people best we can. And that was my first tour. Got out, came back in for a couple years, and went over to the East Coast for my next set of deployments, both to Sang in Afghanistan, 2010 and then 2012, both winter deployments. Kind of the same thing, just different setting this time around. Instead of like Iraq being like a nice built up city, brick and mortar and stuff like that, this time it's like, mud huts, grass, these rickety shelters put together, but it's the same old story. This time, Taliban, pulling their stuff, suppressing legitimately good people, and just a crappy way of life, and coming back home from all 4 of those tours, to Iraq, to Afghanistan, you definitely appreciate what you have here. It always bugs me when I hear in the media, like people complaining about certain things or trying to cancel someone or something like that. I'm like, y'all are lucky, man, the way of life that we have it here, because you go over there, it is nothing. And you can see the news now, what's happening with Iraq and Afghanistan, just, once again, going downhill. But my time over there, as gruesome as it was, I do know that myself and my fellow Marines, we at least did what we could to try to help those people out, try to have a better life, and for the ones that managed to get out of there, make it over here or another free country, hopefully, they live a better life than what they were living over there. And like I said, I definitely appreciate what I have, the people I have, all that stuff now because of all that. But yeah, and I'll spare like the gory details and all that. And I mean, I'm sure other people have shared the same things that I would share anyways. So
yeah, and it's all good. It's your story, and so I just kind of appreciate that reflection in those pieces. So, well then, what about, I guess, some of those comings and goings. So, I mean, some of the folks that we've talked with, throughout this year and even before that, the transitions back were, those tours either left a mark or they carried some things back with them and all that kind of pieces. So can you talk a little bit then? I mean, how long has it been since your last, military combat deployment then? How long has that been?
So the last combat tour was 2015, when we went back to al-Baghdadi, Iraq, to reopen al-Assad. And during that time frame, we were known as the 300 Marines that were surrounded, which wasn't factually accurate, but it means pretty close. But when we were reopening the base, a lot of the ISIL operatives were out there, trying to give us hell and whatnot. But that was my last legitimate combat tour. But as far as like things that stick with you, I was probably at my worst after my first deployment, because that was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that, as far as like, death, dismemberment, whatever, explosions, getting shot at. You get home, you're kind of like on edge, you see a pile of trash on the road, and our thing was to drive, wide around the piles of trash, because there's potentially a bomb in it. And so I'd be at home in Marietta with my, wife, back then girlfriend, and we drive my truck and I see a pile of trash on like a regular street that I've driven down many times before deployment. And I do like a wide turn, almost hit another car. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, there's a bomb in that trash." And then I sit there, I'm like, "Oh wait, I'm home." So it was stuff like that stuck with you. And then, during recruiting, unfortunately, a lot of the stuff finally caught up with me after, 4 tours, and I had to get help, and thankfully, Marines recognized that I was in a bad spot. They asked me the hard question, and, I got the help I needed. Took about a month and a half, a couple months to get through it all, but I was able to, learn how to deal with it, learn how to accept it, which is the biggest thing. And then be able to tell my story and help out Marines understand potentially what they're going to see, what they're going to go through. And I know, Alec, we've had conversations before too about the stuff I've seen, and, hopefully you never have to go through it, but at least, I've shared, talked about that, shared those tales with you. That way it's like, okay, we're going somewhere. This could be nasty. I remember this is what Chris said, so
right,
we got prepared for. So,
right. Chris, do you mind?
Or is that kind of why you got into recruiting then? So that you could, because a lot of the theme that we've heard is, people kind of go in and they're like, it's going to be crazy. And then it's crazy. And then people come back and they kind of have this like very minimal psych evaluation. That's like, are you feeling good? Like, my Uncle Pat was saying for his, it was like, do you want to kill your wife? And he was like, what? He's like, no, I don't want to kill my wife. And then that was, and then from there, he just kind of shuts down and like says everything that he has to say. And they're like, okay, great, you're fine. And then they like never checked on him again, and so I guess for you is that, or I guess, and you can talk a little bit more if there's something different, but like, is that something that stemmed into you wanting to be in recruiting?
So recruiting was kind of its own unique beast in of itself. So I didn't volunteer for recruiting. Marine Corps said I needed to do it. So it's like, okay, I'm Marine Corps, I got orders, I got to go do it. But the biggest thing with that was, for a lot of the Marines that I did recruit, and from what I'm tracking, they're all, doing great in the Marine Corps now. I think some are actually about to get out because it's already been well over 4 years for them, or move, re-enlist and continue on. But for them, I didn't like, cutting corners. I didn't like try to hide anything. Yeah, you have to do your whole recruiting spiel. You got to like sell them on the Marine Corps and all that stuff. But a lot of them, truly do want to join, want to serve. They just need more info. It's like, okay, cool. But they all knew that, I had an infantry background because initially started as a grunt and then I moved over to fire support. But they all knew that I had combat tours, and combat tour is a combat tour, regardless of your job, just time and place. And I was like the quote unquote grunt of the office when I was in my recruiting station. And all the time, all the future Marines, all the police would come up and ask me about combat. Like, what did you see? What was it like? I didn't sugarcoat anything, and I told them that it's not pleasant. It's nasty. You see the worst humanity can offer. There's sight, sound, smells. It's going to be associated with death and hate. But the biggest thing is you have to understand why you're there. You're there to help people out that can't help themselves. And that was the one thing I always reminded my future Marines before boot camp, after boot camp. after their first duty assignment, I actually had a couple of guys call me up. It's like, hey, we're getting ready to do this, Gunny, what do I need to do to prepare? And I just tell them the same thing I told them when they were a police. You just need to be ready to go and understand that you're doing this for the right reasons to help people out. Won't be pleasant, but it's worth it in the long run.
It's not about you, maybe theme.
Back. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Chris, do you, and if you don't want to, but I'm just like, when you said you finally got to a place where you weren't in a very good place, like what do you mind sharing a little bit about the symptoms? I mean, what was your own kind of level of self-awareness as you were like kind of operating and functioning well? And then it got like, what was it that you were feeling or thinking or whatever that kind of got you to the point that, you put your hand up and said, hey, I might need a little bit of help?
I think the biggest thing is, and I've heard this from a lot of guys and gals that have said that, when they needed help, it was because of a certain situation. And because I was taken out of that operational tempo, that operational mindset of like work up, deploy, come back, chill out. Okay, work up again. So I was always in that mindset. So I never really, had a chance to sit back and think about it. But with recruiting, you had to completely shift gears. It's completely different from your day-to-day job. You have to like become a salesman. You got to learn how to talk to people. You got to be able to go out there and share the knowledge and sell the Marine Corps. Excuse me. And so that completely changed. And, there was a lot of like time where, in between making phone calls and going on Facebook, trying to say hi to someone or going to do a class talk, you just be at your office. And sometimes like if nothing was going on and you already had stuff typed in, you're just kind of sitting there like, okay, cool. Like you start getting alone with your thoughts and just a lot of stuff start creeping up. I'd watch a video and, of like, I don't know, some military appreciation video and I'd start bawling. I'm like, I've never done that before. What the hell am I doing? And just, starting to get more and more depressed, starting to like think that you're not worth it because, you didn't make, that extra contract this month. You suck. You're a terrible human being, and just, it kept, getting worse and worse, started affecting my work, like late to my recruiting station. I wasn't focused on selling. I was like just missing stuff. And then finally I was like, wait, something's not right because I'm thinking about my pistol and what's that going to taste like? You know what I mean? And it was just a bad spot. It absolutely was a bad spot. And then finally, like, I think something's wrong. One of my Marines, good friend of mine, Kenny Woodfin, he's like, hey, Gunny, something's not right. Are you okay? He's like, I looked at him, I was like, I don't think so, dude. And then I tried, talking to a kid, and I just like labored through it, like fake smile, everything, like in the inside, I was just hurting. And then finally, my boss, came up to me, he's like, hey, are you okay? I was like, no, something's wrong. So went to the hospital and got the help I needed. And, went through all that treatment and definitely 100 times better and got a second lease on life, got a second chance of being a husband and father, second chance of being a Marine, and second chance of being a human being. So it was awesome. But I'm happy where I'm at now.
Yeah.
When you did kind of like finally start getting help, was there, like when you said you went to the hospital, was there like a specific type of treatment that was really beneficial for you?
It was more of like that cognitive therapy type stuff where it's and it sucks, but it's where the therapist has you like relive events in your mind. Like you're in a setting, you're sitting there, you got your eyes closed, and she was able to get me back to those certain events, those key events, both prior to the Marine Corps with like the divorce and other stuff throughout life, during the Marine Corps as far as those combat tours, leading up to the last thing that was affecting me. And it's a lot of stuff, and to be able to relive those events, compartmentalize them, and understand that, hey, what happened. It's not your fault. This is just the way the world is. The world's not forgiving, but here's how you deal with it. And be able to go through that kind of therapy really helped out, and it, not saying like, am I 100% cured? No. I mean, you can ask Alec, I'm extremely grumpy, sometimes, and sometimes I kind of lash out, and it's not like out of malice. It's just, kind of like side effects. But at the same time, I'm not where I was, years ago, where I don't even think Alec would want to be in the same room with me, so, but, having that help, going through all that, now I've never been afraid now to like share to younger Marines, fellow ranks, and even senior guys about like, hey, listen, this is what I went through. And for like a lot of the senior dudes, like, I know you and I chewed the same dirt, and if you haven't gotten help yet, man, don't be afraid to ask, because that was always a big stigma. He's like, oh yeah, you need to be a man, you don't need help. I'm like, no, I should have asked for help a long time ago after the first deployment, let alone after the fourth. But I'm glad I did it. I don't regret it. I don't regret anything, I've done, because we live life and we make decisions we make and we learn from them. And then also learning how to deal with it just helps you grow as a human.
Right.
So, and I like to share that and I like to help others out where I can, especially if they have problems.
Well, Chris, I really appreciate you sharing that part of that story, because one of the themes, and we talked about this before the show, that, all of the vets that we've had on have gone through, I think, various levels of kind of that transition back and had their own personal struggles, some much more difficult than others, but I think the common theme, that we've gotten to is that, trying to make it within the military community that it's okay not to be okay. And like you said, to try to lift the stigma about mental health issues, whether it's just feeling angry or whether it's actual depression or whatever it is. And like you said, wondering, about how that pistol tastes. I mean, I will never forget, we did one of our shows with one of the TAPS families, and he had 4 tours in, and then I think it was, I don't know, within 3 months after he was back from his last tour, he committed suicide, and so we kind of went through that side of the story with the family and those things, and the wife told the story and all that. But I just, and my brother-in-law, Pat Cohen, out of Iowa. Hey, Pat, if you're listening. But he's had, from guys under his command, multiple suicides in that same way, and it really, it's a painful thing. And I know that is for everybody. So I guess we want to make sure that it's okay not to be okay, that there is no stigma about asking for help. And, if you can't, wherever you are, we want to invite that. And again, I'll just say this on the show: if you're listening to this and have any issues, we don't always have all the answers, but if you want to hit us up on email or on our other Instagram stuff, we'll do everything we can to try to make sure we get your resource with the right people. So there is help available, and you don't have to go through it alone, and you're not alone. And we're going to talk about your group here in a few minutes about reaching out and supporting veterans. So we just want to make sure that that's really okay. So I thank you for sharing that part of the story. So Alec, I don't want to leave you out. Anything in here that you want to just touch on or follow up with or add to?
So I guess I'll start with saying it's a very interesting position when I joined the military, because joining in commissioning in 2018, you can hear a lot of like my, other lieutenant friends were always like, if we were born 5 years earlier, how great would that have been? And I think there's a sense of romanticizing it, when you're in the military and you've kind of reached this point where we're generally obviously there's still things going on that are combat related, but on a national scale, we're toned down. And, hearing Chris's story from this, obviously we've gotten into some of that from work, but it's crazy to hear, because I never would have imagined it. Like hearing and being able to hear what he's gone through, just to see how he works today. And I know sometimes he says he gets a little grumpy. I think he's like one of the most calm, cool, collected people you'll see. Like he's just kind of like that stoic, maybe he'll get upset at like one or two things, a couple things will spark the plug. But like in terms of like stoicism in, the day to day, when a lot of people can kind of just like be running around where like, this is the be all end all that needs to get done. I think I would have never noticed that, and it's crazy to hear those stories. And I think that's something, as someone who hasn't experienced combat, working with people who have and kind of like seeing that difference, it's a really eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. So let's kind of stay on that theme. I'm sorry, Chris, you have something else?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and I think I've said this to you before, Alec, but the one thing that I had a Marine back in 2005 when I was on the Ramadi tour with 1-5, and I was kind of doing that same thing, because I had joined and went to like a specific unit that didn't go into Iraq. It was in Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, and so I missed the Operation Iraqi Freedom 2, which is in Fallujah, which a lot of people do their history on that. That was a big operation to clear out Fallujah. And a bunch of these Marines that was with me on this post in Ramadi, we were talking about Fallujah, and I kind of mentioned like, God damn, man, I wish I was there with you guys during that time frame. Like, I was already in Ramadi, already gotten shot at, already blown up, but here I was, saying like, I wish I was there. And the guy that I was talking to, and it stuck with me all these years. He says like, I don't want you to, don't say that. And it's like, well, what do you mean? Don't say I wish I was with you? It's like, because, I don't want you to say it because you need to understand, it's like, who's to say the rounds that missed me would have hit you if you were there, and then it kind of made me think, it's like, oh, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. And I get it. Like you were saying, Alec, like a lot of guys that came in during your time frame were like romanticizing about it, wanting to go there. But like I've always told someone, it's like, appreciate the time that you did get a chance to come in, appreciate the time that you were able to serve your country and do what you need. If combat happens, combat happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Either way, just be a good person, be a great Marine. But who's to say like the rounds that would have missed me, Alec, would have hit you if you're with me back then? We don't know, but at the same time, it's like, don't think that you missed out on anything. There's still plenty of idiots in the world that are going to try something. So your chance will come soon. But if you never have to see it like a combat, cool. Good for you and good for anyone else that never has to worry about that type of stuff. Because yeah, unfortunately, it's a necessary evil that we have to do, as people that care about our country and our families. Going out there and facing evil, unfortunately something that we have to do. But if you don't ever have to experience it, then cool. Just still be a good person, be a good dude, good gal, whatever, and continue contributing to society. Either way, you're going to give back. So, but yeah, I always say like, don't ever fret about missing out, because the rounds that missed me could have hit you. So
yeah. From my perspective, it just makes, your generation appreciated, so much more. I think it's just I think it's a cool, dichotomy.
Oh yeah.
It's like working together and everything.
Wow. We almost need a group hug here. I like it. That's pretty good.
Down for that. I'm down
Yeah.
for the hug.
Okay. Well, Chris, I just want to ask you this. So Em and I, we work with, our group is called Thunderbird Performance. And we work a little program. It's called Mindful Awareness of Performance. So we work with athletes on kind of the mental prep. And so it's a meditation and mindfulness based kind of approach to, your mindset. But I just wondered, in these years, and I know you talked about kind of getting like the cognitive therapy. So that's a real specific piece. But, and I guess, when I think about the Marines, I think about leadership training. I think about intentionality. I think about what you said about, when they tell you it's not about you and that kind of stuff. So they really do kind of, when they break you down, they reconstruct you in a way that presents a mindset. In my mind, it's about problem solving. It's about loyalty. It's about service to others, that kind of thing. And being able to operate, even if you're afraid, having enough courage to stand up and do whatever it is that you have to do in those moments. But I just wonder, do you have, so in our world, when I'm working with athletes, we go through kind of assessments and all that kind of thing. And we work on clarifying who they think they are and what they want to be and their goals and all that kind of stuff. But we use, like I said, mindfulness and some meditation. We work on affirmations, to clarify where they want to go after we do some goal setting. We do some visualization type work. Emma does a lot of movement things with yoga, and breath work and that kind of stuff. So I just wondered over the years, I don't know if the Marines train you in any of that kind of stuff, or do you have a mindfulness, or, how do you control that mindset? And I don't mean necessarily just combat, but I mean just overall about being positive, can-do guy, and all that kind of stuff. How do you maintain that over these years?
I just want to kind of add to that, because it's like, right. So everything that he said, but then, in those moments where like you were saying, sometimes you're just presented with the situation where you're like sitting there like, okay, I just did all my work. Okay, I'm done. And then you're like sitting there alone with your thoughts. So like when those moments even kind of creep in, like, do you kind of have these, these tools that you use, or like, what do you rely on to keep you not necessarily neutral, but like at least present with what's going on?
Right. So back then, like, I really didn't know how to deal with it. I just would sit there and dwell on it. But after going through the therapy and whatnot, they, showed like different methods as far as like, whether it's kind of like a breathing meditation type thing, or like a grounding yourself. You put your feet on the ground, hands on your knees, and you kind of count backwards, or do the alphabet backwards, or start, going into a place internally that makes you happy. Like, going back to my grandparents' home, when I would go visit them, TV be on, watching, Niners back in the day, whooping up on Green Bay in the playoffs. And Grandpa would be sitting there. Oh yeah. And Grandpa would be sitting there, and just stuff like that would take me back to like a happy spot, if you will. And that's kind of stuff I do nowadays. But I think the biggest, thing for me really is just my wife and kids, being able to shut it down, whatever the day brought as far as like, whatever 111, had us working on, or whatever the Marine Corps needs us to focus on or something like that, or whatever issues came up throughout the day, being able to like kind of shut it off in the truck on the way home, and then hanging out with my kids, playing with my kids and talking with the wife. I think that's what really helps me nowadays. Because like for me, my wife is my rock. She has absolutely been through so much crap throughout all the years. We've been together since 2004. And all the deployments, all the training, all the time apart. But she has just always been there. She's always just held it down. And by far out of this entire relationship, she is absolutely the toughest one out of the two of us. So absolutely, she has kept it together for me. And then of course my kids, I get home, they want to wrestle, or my son wants to show the puzzle he just built, or, my other boy wants to show like comic book that he drew. And my daughter was like, hey, pick me up. I'm like, that's it. I just instantly feel better. So I think for me, it's my family is definitely something that, helps me out. Drive me nuts sometimes, but that's all I love.
Emmas do that though.
Emmas do that. Absolutely.
They for sure do. Well, Chris, the one thing I do want to highlight on that, I think is a really important part that you mentioned, the transition when we, and whoever it is, but when you re-enter, so we all carry these different roles in our life, So when you're doing whatever you're doing during the day, when you're not deployed in the military capacity, you've got all those obstacles or whatever, tension, stress, whatever it is, however it is. But to have the mental awareness that when you pull in and you park the car, it's like, I don't know if you take your hat off, or like some people actually do a symbolic kind of thing, and they leave it. And so they're making an intentional transition from that military role with all of that stuff that you're carrying and worrying and the emotions and all that attached to it. And not like you don't have to come back to it, but like you make sure you check it at the door so that when you walk in, that you can be fully present. And I think that's a learned behavior, because I think that was really hard for me in my early years of just, my career. I'd be all so tied up and do all that. You're working 60, 80 hours a week. And then you come home and you don't have the wherewithal. It really wasn't until we had our second kid that I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is so much greater than anything else in my life. And so I think that's a great point about, and that's, when we work with people on mindfulness, it's being super intentional about paying attention to thoughts, understanding your emotions, holding space for them. And then the real thing is between the pause and then responding is making sure that you're choosing a response, not just reacting to that situation, that you're showing up in the way that you want to do. So I think that's super important with people that have kind of stressful jobs. And when they're coming back to try to be present with other people, making sure that you're really being intentional about how you want to show up those people in those moments. So kudos to you on that one. So that's very, very good. All right. Anything else you want to talk about? And then Alec, I don't want to leave you out either. So I don't know if you picked up anything, or because you guys get the super secret officer training. So there's probably a whole bunch of toolkits in there, but anything extra that that you've come across that has been helpful for you regarding kind of your mindset and, or, kind of staying in that mindfulness place?
I think that at least kind of like what I've seen over the last few years is just, it has been at least more destigmatized, to talk about mental health and things like that, in the workplace. So I think, just having those initial conversations, kind of the symbolic thing that you do. I don't know if it was, very completely symbolic for how I do it, but, after, and again, stress is all relative, but, after, a stressful day or something, or, a stressful few weeks or whatever, I started making the decision I wasn't going to drive home or anything in my uniform. So like, that's my, lack of a symbolic thing. Like I'll leave it there. And, that was kind of my thing. It's like, not that I'm trying to like leave, the identity that's along with it there, but like, okay, work's over. And I think that, just having conversations, I think my dad was, shameless plug there, was actually a huge rock for that. Cause I always admired when he would come home from work, and he's pulling 80-hour weeks or whatever it is. And, just, he wouldn't talk about work. He just, he'd be home and he'd be the father. And just hoping to like gain those habits. Obviously I don't have the wife and kids, but
not yet.
I'll keep those habits, right.
Right. And that's really hard because and your dad, he's a high stakes, big, high profile litigation attorney, primarily doing defense stuff, but not easy stuff. I mean, he would tell me about his weeks. I'm like, because I did all criminal defense, right, which is crazy town anyway. But like, oh my gosh, so like the things that he had to deal with and all that, and to be able to come home like that and kind of shelve it and be present. So that's great. And I think that's a great idea about just changing clothes before you leave, because it really makes a cognitive shift. We call that in our world, we call that activation. So you're activating a particular role in your life. And it's very good to have either some kind of token or symbol to make that specific transition. So you're going from one role or kind of place in a mindset into a separate one. And so changing clothes before you leave, because then you do. And again, it's not like you're disrespecting your job or your service or anything like that, but it puts you in just a different frame of mind, and you're able to kind of leave that and enter into a new role. So I think that's a great one. So that's pretty cool that way. So very nicely done. All right, cool. Let's see. I want to give a quick shout out to our MVP folks. I'm just going to read their mission statement, and then we're going to jump down and talk about our group. And I'm going to mispronounce it because I can't say. Is it Semper Fi?
Yeah.
Am I close? Okay. I don't know why. It's like I keep thinking the E is going to sound weird. But anyway, all right, merging vets with players. Everybody knows that that's been one of our partners this year. We've been very grateful for them. We will have another MVP vet for next week after the Niners beat the Rams, make the playoffs before we go to the wild card game. So merging vets with player mission is to empower combat veterans and former professional athletes by connecting them after the uniform comes off, providing them with a new team to assist with transition, and promoting personal development and show them that they are never alone. Very simple, very similar when we read the Semper Fi mission statement as well. So again, just out there's a lot of resources, men and women out there, military events, and or others. But if you're having any kind of issues out there, make sure that you do ask for help, because there's a lot of people out there. So, okay, then Chris, I want to get back then. So each week when we have a vet on, we donate $2,000 to the charity of their choice. And so I think you and Alec talked about that. And so I'll just read this, and then you can talk to me a little bit about why this is your organization. So it's called the Semper Fi and America's Fund. It says, we are dedicated to providing immediate financial assistance and lifetime support to combat wounded, critically ill, and catastrophically injured members of all branches of the United States Armed Forces and their families. We apply your donations to comprehensive, proven programs that deliver immediate and long-lasting impact. We ensure service members have the resources they need during their recovery and throughout transition back to their communities. So tell us a little bit, how'd you get hooked up with these? And I just want to say, too, I think they were formed in 2003, and they were formed by a group of spouses, wives primarily, of men who had been serving, because they felt like there was a need for this. And so their history is pretty cool. So if you're interested more about that, it's all on the website. But Chris, tell us a little bit about why this is your organization and why we're making the donation.
I mean, it's kind of like in their mission statement right there, because I think there's a lot of, especially back in the day, a lot of vets that were coming back, that were injured. Like I'm blessed, God bless me with making sure I still have all my digits, parts and limbs, all that stuff. Still going through what I went through, but there's other vets that weren't as fortunate as me, coming back as like double, triple amps or something like that. And unfortunately, had to find a way to function in society. And, there'd be times where they just couldn't do much because, they're just disabled or couldn't function, I would say, in the capacity needed for like a busy society like ours here in America. And I think with this foundation, I think, them helping those veterans out, those warriors out, to be able to get back on their feet, take care of their families, and do what they need to do to keep, progressing in our society. I think that's outstanding. So, like I said, I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at now. And hopefully, like with this foundation, they can definitely help others continue going forward and be able to help out too. And plus, with the advancement in technology and all these new artificial limbs coming out, hopefully this foundation and many other foundations and societies can help get our, disabled veterans and people that need it the most, the parts and pieces they need to get back into the fold and help out and help progress our society. So absolutely, I think it's a great cause.
Okay, so we will have the donation page. We'll have links in the show notes, and we'll put all those in. And so if folks are so inclined, but we'll make that donation this week and get that out there and encourage folks. And again, We just encourage folks, do what you can in your local area. And if it's not this, but if you're committed to some other cause. And again, I really like where we started is that it's not about you. And it is and it isn't. But it's about us getting off our butts and going out and doing things to help other people. That's really what it's about, to the extent it's about us at all. But otherwise, it's not. So we do want to lift people up, as we're kind of moving forward with that. Alec, you want to add anything, or I don't want to cut you off? Anything about this organization or otherwise?
No, I mean, everything Chris said, I completely agree with it. And all these organizations, especially that I haven't, heard much about the MVP until I saw what you guys were doing. And, the organizations you guys have been supporting has been really cool to kind of hear, different guests, and just want to add another one to the table. So.
Yeah, well, we're very proud to do that. Excited about doing that. So, okay, let's see. Is there, Chris, before we hang up, I guess there's two things I just want to kind of offer you, and then Emma will close us out. But one, is there any message to, I don't know, youth out there and or maybe young military members, but not necessarily exclusively? Is there some lesson or wisdom that you kind of want to share? And or secondly, is there anything you'd want to tell just kind of the nasty citizens out there who, just anything else about being in the military or these transitions that we haven't covered that you think it's important for people to know?
Sure. Yeah. I would say for people thinking about joining the military, or like you said, the younger service members, regardless of branch, I think the biggest thing is just be humble and be patient, and, definitely listen, because you're going to have a lot of those seasoned vets, that have been there, done that, taken, good, bad, and different, whatever advice they give you, and learn from that and build from that. And that's both on the enlisted and officer side. Is to definitely, be humble, be patient, and listen. And I would also say that for civilians as well, because there are some people that have chose not to serve, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. They're contributing to society in their own way. They're helping out their communities in their own way, which is great. But I would also say the same thing for them, that, they always read the media or hear news stories, woe is me with military or something like that. It's like, that's not the case. Again, same thing is be humble, listen, and just understand that it's not an easy world to serve in the military, because there is a lot of stuff you got to put up with. There's a lot of time away from the family. There's a lot of, tough decisions that have to be made. And unfortunately, there are decisions that will put people in harm's way, and I think a lot of people need to understand that that is not a tough decision. And, more so for Alec, he definitely has it probably worse than me, because being an officer, at the end of the day, it's the officer that is the ominous dominus person, and then for us enlisted, we're the ones that execute. Now, of course, I'll advise him, other enlisted people will advise him on what's going to work best. But at the end of the day, it's him signing at the dotted line. But the biggest thing is just being humble, being patient, and, listening, understanding. So. Yeah. Okay. And not all civilians are nasty. I just want to put it out there. It's like a Marine Corps recruiter or drill instructor joke.
Oh, I thought by definition, if you weren't serving, you were nasty. I thought that just like it's that way or that. Oh, okay. All right. All good. Alec, any, and I know you don't have the same number of years in or that necessarily that combat deployment stuff, but is there anything else you'd like folks to kind of understand about either military service, or maybe talk to the high school person going into college? Is there any kind of nugget that you'd want to let them know about, so they might not have to fall down so many times to figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of looking from the high school to college perspective, just being open to the opportunities and taking. It's never going to look the way that you imagine it looking. Like if you were to ask me, I think it was actually when I was I passed through and stayed at your guys' house right before I was actually going to the basic school in 2018. So, the last time we had talked, I don't think that my current, career would have turned out the same, but it's taking the experiences and making the most out of them, having to turn those positive experiences and, the romanticized views or, what you're expecting from your service a lot of times, especially, talking to those who are looking to go in, might not be what you're going to get out of it. But that doesn't mean that, your mindset, needs to be negative, or you need to, be bitter at something or someone. Take the stories that you learn from, those you serve, with, and then those you serve for, and just kind of, be a sponge to all of it. And that was kind of my biggest advice.
Right. Well, it's really true. I mean, you have to follow your heart and you take the steps, but you have to go down the path, even though you don't know exactly where the path leads, because there's always kind of a curve at the bottom and you can't tell if it's going back up the hill or off a cliff, but that's part of the fun. And so you don't know, and you just have to go and trust that you'll figure it out along the way. And it always looks a little bit different than you thought it was going to, but God bless the journey. You know what I mean? And there we are. So, okay, Emmy, you want to close us out then?
Yes. So
Okay.
as we close, guys, we like to kind of end with an upward swing. So we always like to talk about hope and kind of seeing the glass half full. So Chris, we'll start with you, but what gives you hope right now?
The future for my kids, I think that's what gives me hope as far as being there for them. Like I said, in the next few years, I'm going to retire from the Marine Corps. Get into a normal 9-to-5 job, whatever that looks like, I'll figure it out. But being able to be there, not miss events anymore, not deploy on birthdays, Christmases, and stuff like that. I think that's the biggest thing right there, is to be around, but also be there to, be a good father, to be a good husband, and help my family, accomplish great things. And that's what gives me hope, is just seeing what all three of my kids are going to be capable of, because they're all unique individuals in their own way, and they have their own talents, and I want to be able to see those talents flourish and do something great. So that's what gives me hope, is just seeing what my children can do, and just hang out with life and to have fun.
That's great. Well, I'm excited for you to have that opportunity. Alec, what about you?
So I guess for me, a little bit different, coming up on my first contract. I think the hope aspect stems from, just trying to be like, have an outward perspective, kind of like while I'm currently going through the present, meaning that, just taking the journey for how it's going to be, looking forward to the next 3 years as like a new opportunity, whether or not staying in or transitioning, just kind of, being open to all the new changes and opportunities. Sometimes I think people can always feel like you might be older, more like stuck in your current career or whatever than you are. But like, I'm only 25, I have a little bit more time than I think I sometimes would like to imagine I do. So, pivots and everything like that, along the path of life is kind of what's given me hope.
Exciting times. BK, what about you?
Well, I'm going to go with when Chris was talking about one of his deployments, you mentioned when you were there, and the framework, your mental kind of approach to the thing was that you were there fighting evil and trying to protect people in their lives, who couldn't protect themselves. But one of the things you said, they were just trying to live a normal life, so it's like, as far removed sometimes as we feel, from people in those corners of the earth and the world, and maybe sometimes even here locally, in the United States, sometimes we feel really different. But, at the end of the day, we're all humans, and at least in this country, to the extent that we're all, United States citizens, and even globally, though, even when we're not, that common interest about protecting your spouse and protecting your children and just trying to make the world a little bit better place for them and keeping them safe. When you told that, I think about that all the time, but it just reminds me, that we really are, whether we speak a different language, have a different religion or whatever, we're a lot more the same than we are different. Because at its base, our common interests, for the most part, not everyone, obviously, but for the most part, everybody, we love our families. We're trying to protect it, trying to make our communities better and safer. And I think that's kind of a universal theme, and so when I hear that, and I would think that was part of your experience, you met some amazing people probably over there who are just trying to live their lives, stay out of danger, and protect their kids. So, that gives me hope. I guess my hope for 22 is maybe being able to make that connection a little bit in a bigger way. And maybe we could set down some of the divisiveness that we've experienced over the last few years, both nationally and internationally, and just spend more time thinking about how we're in common and, the things we need to do for this planet and each other. So that gives me a lot of hope.
Good one, Pops.
All right, Lubu, where you got? Close us out. It's got to be a zinger. Bam, let's go.
And this is something that I was even thinking about with Tom when we interviewed him, but I feel like, over the last couple of years and just living through these crazy circumstances and like really every single day, not knowing what's going to come next or like what's on the news, I think it's really developed this kind of resiliency within people that is really starting to manifest now. And it makes me, we're definitely not like through anything yet, but even just seeing this like new level of resiliency and like kind of figure it out on your own and like finding your own path, I feel like people are really learning how to do that in a way that maybe we haven't in the past. And so I guess, I don't know, I'm hopeful, new year, love all the new energy that comes with it, but even just kind of the new mindset and this fresh energy. And I think, the new year can sometimes be really symbolic for people to like have a fresh start. And I think sometimes that's all we need to really let go of, the past and things that have really hurt us and that really aren't serving us anymore. So kind of like set down that backpack, like we talk about a lot, but yeah. So, and having guys like you on, and then we get to see you tomorrow or Sunday.
Yeah.
So that'll be really great.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm going to end with a quote. I don't know who this guy was, but I saw it on the thing I was reading. It's from John Paul. It's Crimi. I don't know him, so I hope he's, I hope that's okay. But anyway, the quote it was on a Buddhist meditation page, so I think it's okay. But anyway, he said, only do what is easy and life gets hard. If you do what is hard, life will get easy. And Emma, I think that ties into kind of that point you're making is that, whether by choice or not, over the last, 18, 24 or whatever, 3 years, we've had the opportunity to kind of face some things, the civilians and otherwise, that weren't really what we wanted to do. And I think you're right, though, maybe that resiliency, kind of toughness, and people have some confidence now to go out, and we're figuring out how to live in this world that we've got right now and maybe, make a little bit of a difference. So that's great. So, okay, very good. Well, we've been chatting a lot. Chris, Alec, any final words you want to kind of pump in before we close off? And then hopefully we'll see you on Sunday at the old Rams game with the Niners in town. Come on, baby.
Yeah, I just appreciate you guys having us on. Absolutely. And just go Niners and beat the Rams.
All right. Beat the Rams.
I'll take it. All right. Go Niners. Thank you, guys.
Alec, really good to connect with you. And
great. Likewise.
I've already sent you the tickets, so you got all of your package for everybody. So, Chris, if he's holding out on you, he actually has the tickets. So don't let him do that. All right, and then we'll try to hook up with you guys when we get to the stadium. So, thank you for your service, Alec. You be safe. Good luck with whatever transition you decide to go forth, and we appreciate your service as well. And we love you and your family very, very much. So we're grateful for that friendship as well. So thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Enjoy it. We'll see you on
guys.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to take care. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being a part of that show. Can't believe we're at the end of the regular season. Very in my feels, as I am per usual after these episodes, but I just want to give a big thank you to everybody who was on tonight. Tom, George, Pops, Alec, and Chris. That was some really great stuff, and very, very happy and proud to be a part of this and all of the different stories we've been able to share this year. So if you'd like to stay connected with us, we are Hidden Pearls Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We are Hidden Pearls Pod on Twitter. And then if you, like we mentioned, if you ever want to reach out, want to have a conversation about something, or are looking for resources or need a little bit of help, you can send us an email at info@thunderbirdperformance.com. And then Pops and I both have access to that, so you'll be emailing to us. But just want to say thank you guys so much for being a part of this journey. And if you feel like sprinkling a little magic on us, it would be really helpful if you could go onto the Apple Podcast and leave us a 5-star review and actually leave a comment. It really, really helps our ratings with the show. And it also helps us to get our message out there, which is really important to us, because we really believe that mental health and how it affects not only veterans, but, kind of using their stories to really tell the story of it's okay to not be okay, and kind of spreading that message is super, super important. And we want to make sure that anybody who needs help can get help. And, sometimes that might be from a little podcast. And so if you guys could do that, it would mean the world to us. And we just want to say thank you. So with all that, can't wait to head down to LA and go Niners, baby.